Welcome to Backpacker Radio, presented by The Trek. I am your co-host, Zach Badger Davis, and sitting to my right is...
Hi, I'm Juliana Chauncey, a.k.a. Chaunce.
I wish I would have taken one of your gas pills. I'm having
Are you
bubble
not
guts
good
right
right now?
Yeah, it might be bad. It might be real bad.
Uh-oh.
But we'll fight on. That's what we do here at Backpacker Radio. We have a few reminders before we get to today's Q&A episode. We'll intro our third panelist here in a second as well. This is your last chance to bid on our amazing Tyvek wall with some hair as well. We've got over 70 signatures on this thing, some of the biggest names in backpacking, everyone that's been in studio here over the last few years. We were actually just trying to pin the exact time that we put this thing up. Do you have a guess?
I have no idea. How long have we been here?
Yeah, somewhere in that range. Certainly pre-COVID. So we'll go.
It was one of our first things.
Yeah, but yeah, if you've listened to this podcast in the last, let's say, 4 years, and you've heard a guest in studio, their signature graces our, no pun intended there, Twinkle. Their signatures grace our Tyvek wall. We also have some hair, as I mentioned, and we'll be auctioning this off and donating all of the proceeds to Blackpackers. So you'll get a piece of Backpacker Radio history, and you'll be donating to a great cause as well. The link for that will be in the show notes. Also going to drop a note here that if you're taking on a long-distance backpacking trip this year, it's not too late to apply to be a blogger for the Trek. Whether you're through hiking or taking on an extended backpacking trip of any kind, we would love to feature your journey. The link for that is in the show notes. And then also, we're toying with spicing up our Patreon. I should also mention, we've been dropping in bonuses here and there regardless. Recently, Paulie has been compiling all of our Triple Crowns from old episodes and dropping them as standalone episodes through Patreon. We obviously do the dedicated Patreon episode on the first Wednesday of every month. We recently did the listener calling and answering episode where we got hung up on it in pretty hysterical fashion.
That was great.
Yeah, I got the edit note from Paulie. He said he laughed very hard at that. So,
did we ever hear from them?
No.
Is this but this is going out tomorrow. The one that they hung up on us.
It'll go out next Wednesday.
Right, today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
Brains.
Yeah.
Yeah, I cannot wait for them to let us know that
I hope it gets
they
back
put
to
it
them.
together.
Yeah, same. But yeah, we're toying with potentially going up to even 4 Patreon episodes per month, so 1 per week. Still sorting out the details there, but if you're on the fence about being a Patreon supporter, maybe this will sway you in the direction to support the show. And let's just say that you'll be getting a lot more goodies from our guests. And that's it. Let's just get to today's episode. Very excited here. We've got an awesome list of questions. But before we get to the questions, let's introduce our third panelist, longtime friend of Backpacker Radio. We are joined once again by our buddy Twinkle. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You swing the mic a little bit closer to you. So I'm trying to think. When was the last time we had you on the podcast? Probably about a year ago, right?
Yeah, with Kylie Yang.
Yes. Okay. What have we missed in the last year? If anybody, I could put money on the fact that they've been up to cool things at all times, just based on what I see from Instagram. It's always you. You've always got like a National Geographic quality photo gracing your feed. So yeah, give us the update over the last year.
A lot of good stuff. A lot of canyoneering. I think last year, Grace and I really focused on canyoneering and using our time off from work to venture out to Zion and Arizona, Grand Canyon, etc. So that was most of our trips were canyoneering and all summer in the mountains. We had a great summer in Colorado, no smoke.
Yeah.
I don't even think I remember a single day of bad smoke, where it feels like the last 4 years that was kind of starting to turn to the norm.
Right. We got that bad stretch in the spring from Canada, like way up north, but that cleared out pretty quickly. And then, the summer was amazing.
The summer was fantastic.
Yeah.
So just a really good year. A lot of skiing.
Yeah. Based on our questions, I think we'll get into the canyoneering stuff a little bit, but just out of my own personal curiosity, what's the draw to canyoneering over, because obviously I know you love peak bagging and through hiking, backpacking. What's the draw to canyoneering specifically?
I think probably 2 things. Solitude. You get a lot of solitude in the canyons, and the beauty is it's a much different style of beauty than the mountains. So I think maybe just the contrast to where we live in Colorado is really nice.
Yeah.
I thought, because I went canyoneering one time in Arches, I felt like it was less work. Like, granted, I wasn't setting the ropes to rappel down, But I felt like with climbing, because you're going up, you're exerting a lot of energy. But with canyoneering, since you're dropping down a lot of stuff, it was like what I remember from the trip is we were all just kind of like enjoying an afternoon, like a pleasant time.
Yeah.
Which is something I feel like you don't often get in the contexts that we go outside.
Yeah, like a ninja picnic.
Yes.
It is chill. Canyoneering is really chill, really fun. You can do canyons that can be very difficult and taxing, but a lot of them are just like 4 to 8 hours and sit by a campfire afterwards and have dinner and drink beer, and it's fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun. Yeah, it's a fun activity.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'm sure there's more of that subject to come here based on the questions that we've got, but let's jump right into it. We've done, I think this is our second Q&A episode that we've done through the main podcast, and we've got a bunch of brand new subjects to cover, and the first one kind of hits on a timely subject, and I guess we'll just jump right into the question. This one is from David, and it goes, love the show and the transition to non-traditional trails and section hikers. With the recent death in New Hampshire and Nicole Antoinette talking about a nagging knee injury, attention needs to be given to crushing it syndrome. Crushing it can be done when young, but abuse catches up. I probably should have done some more editing to this. Doing the Pemi Loop in winter with lightweight gear and unprepared to spend a night outside is suicidal. Yes, I judge. When young and winter treks in the Whites, we always carried a stove and a tarp. Turning back at treeline was common. The Pemi Loop is a beast in summer. Winter, it would be a challenge in 2 to 3 days. That's from David. So obviously, this hits on the tragic story of Christopher Roma, who, what was the date? I think 2 weeks ago now, so I think January 16th, somewhere in that range, tragically passed in attempting the Pemi Loop in a single day. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Attempting the Pemi Loop in a single day in the Whites in really horrific conditions. You guys are probably familiar with the story at this point, but there was an attempted rescue, but the visibility was too low. The wind was very high. It was snowing heavily, and unfortunately they were not able to rescue him, and the rest is history. So there's a lot to unpack here with this question, talking about crushing it syndrome, the story at large. But I think before we get into our take on not only this scenario, but again, just crushing it syndrome at large, and I guess maybe we can introduce that, is I want to touch on an article that Andrew Skirka did, and I think he did it really, really well. And instead of trying to paraphrase it, I will just direct you guys there. But in a nutshell, he really well articulated the argument about why hikers need to develop a turn back muscle. In a lot of contexts, doing like the Triple Crown of hiking, there's probably not many, if any, scenarios where you have to ever turn back. So we don't ever develop the skill of knowing of when your life could be on the line and turning back. So he just argues that you should be able to have the ability to turn back, and maybe you do it in a situation where you think you can persevere, but just doing it to develop the muscle. Again, he articulates it much better than I can, but I highly encourage you to check out the article. You guys have any follow-up on that? No? Okay. So this is kind of a big question and a big subject. I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I'll try to do my best to be succinct here. But a lot of my thoughts, I think, are painted by this podcast, because we talk to a lot of people who take on really audacious adventures. And, I think I've learned a lot about the people that do those things over the course of years of interviewing these people. First and foremost, I don't really feel comfortable talking ill of the dead, and there's a lot of commentary out there about people saying, like, this is where he fucked up, at least different shades of it. And although we don't have all the facts about Christopher's story, it's not impossible that something went very wrong in the course of his death, and to speculate otherwise, I think, is unfair to him, and especially to those who are grieving his death. There appears to be a lot of Monday morning quarterbacking with this story. A lot of people saying, of course, the risk was too great, and this is what happens when you put yourself on trail in those conditions. And given the outcome, obviously, that is true. But we encounter so many people on this podcast when they talk about their death-defying stories that they come to life when they're telling these stories. Like, I think recently, who did we have? We had Nicole and Dirtmonger. Like, the way that they relayed stories where they thought that potentially their life was on the line, they just, like, something came alive in their eyes, and like you can see that they need to find that edge to like feel passionate. Maybe it's a flow state, I don't know what it is, but to like put themselves in the circumstances where like they don't know if they're going to make it out, it feels like that is almost giving purpose to their life. You know, I doubt the dangerous situations that they were in were nearly as high risk as Christopher's, but from what I can tell, it seems like with each backpacking trip, they get off on pushing the envelope further and further and like growing their skill set and finding that new edge. And having that relatively high degree of risk is where they find their thrill in adventuring. So does this mean that they're putting themselves at a greater risk than they realize? Or does this mean that they realize the risk and that riding the edge is what brings them this joy? I honestly don't know the answer to that question, but it seems plausible to me that people like putting themselves on that edge. And we see horrific injuries and deaths in climbing, mountaineering, look at Mount Everest, cycling, and more sports every single year. More often than not only are people aware of the risk they're taking on, it's what makes it fun for them. It puts them into a flow state, like I said, which is very highly rewarding from everything that we know about the science of it. As someone who is very risk averse myself, and especially now with kids, that's even to a higher degree, I honestly don't relate to the people who get this thrill, but it's undeniable that it does exist for these other people. So if high risk sports is what brings someone happiness, who am I or anyone else to say that they shouldn't be able to partake in those sorts of activities? Where it gets tricky, obviously, in this scenario is Christopher's leaving behind a 2-year-old son, which breaks my heart. I have a 3-year-old at home. For him to not have his father because of what seems to have been entirely avoidable situation is tragic. It's not a situation I would ever want to put my family in. But the moral of the story is I feel conflicted on this particular situation. I think it's a good reminder for people to hear this story because they learn that things can go fatally wrong in the backcountry. Like, hearing this story might be the thing that triggers somebody to actually flex their turn back muscle. So I'm glad that it's getting so much attention. Or maybe it's a reminder for people that they need to improve their skill set, because like Christopher was probably just trying to push the boundary of the edge that we were talking about earlier, and unfortunately he found the wrong side of that. But regardless of the situation, whatever backpacking trip you're going into, like, you need to have a foundational skill set to be able to survive on any trail, whether it's even just like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail. Like, it's a good reminder that things can go wrong in the backcountry regardless of what trail you're on. But by the same token, I also don't think it's super easy to say just avoid high-risk situations, because through this podcast, I've learned that those situations make people feel alive. It gives them purpose. It gives them joy. And there's a lot of people I'm seeing on the internet saying, like, he shouldn't be out there, he shouldn't be blah, 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 blah. And they probably come from a similar perspective to me. Like, maybe they're more on the risk-averse side. But being exposed to these people where they get that sense of purpose and passion, you know, I've learned that it doesn't make sense to tell people to not do those things, because I think that is what paints life for them. So it's kind of a chaotic spattering of my thoughts, which is as good as I can get on this subject. But yeah, I'm curious to get your guys' take.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in that you can't really tell people not to do things that require a bunch of risk, because I think the personalities that like putting themselves in a situation where it is a little risky, you can make a Venn diagram where there is overlap with the people that would have more inertia to do it and have it be an even bigger almost high by being told not to.
Sure.
You know? So I don't think that is a solution.
Like dealing with a teenager or something like that.
Yeah, like you can't do that. Like watch me then,
right.
You know? I'm in the same boat as you where I'm incredibly risk averse. Like, I am a baby. Had my claim to fame as I started my long distance hiking by skipping the Sierra, you know? And that was a hard decision, and one that I like beat myself up for a while. And then 2 girls, my height, my stature, died in the river crossings. And it's obviously like, what's sad about it is that it happened, but what's also sad about it is it took that happening for me to kind of calm down the did I fuck up by flipping mindset, You know, like that happened and I felt like, okay, like, so I wasn't just being a baby about this. Like, that was a good decision probably for me to switch. But you shouldn't have to have something like that happen to make that decision. It's just hard for me to speak to because I'm a scaredy cat, you know? Like, if I go up to, for example, the Sierra and I see what the conditions are and I know I don't have those skills, like, I'm very afraid. You know, if I'm up on a steep ledge and it's, like, scree and I can see the scree falling while I'm walking, I'm very afraid. Like, I get shaky, I get vertigo, you know, like, I think that prevents me from going further. I had an instance on the Ozark Highlands Trail in March where one of the big river crossings, I had to go out and turn back 3 separate times in different spots because where I thought my hiking partner was telling me she crossed was where she was telling me not to cross. Mm-hmm. And I kept getting out to the middle and seeing I can't, like, my feet are sliding, it's over my knees, I can't find any stability here. And the closest I ever got was on one of those crossings, I was looking downstream and I was trying to figure out where I would float to if I slipped. And just like in my mind, I was like, fuck it, I don't want to go back again and redo this. There was a 3-mile workaround that I could have done that would have avoided the river entirely, but I would have had a back hike, you know? And so in that moment, I can see decisions like this where I did not want to go back and do this, you know, hike a mile back to the turnoff, hike 3 miles around it. I already knew my partner had made it around. Like, stuff like that makes it super hard to turn back and not just keep wanting to crush it. And so I can empathize in those situations, but I guess what I can speak to is as someone who more often than not will choose to turn back than to keep going if I'm scared, it's not that bad, right? Like, maybe it comes down to like how well you can handle not like having your original goal or your original objective pivot to a different kind of goal or objective. You know, maybe it's not what you originally set out to do, but it's still something cool. But for me, every time I've chosen to turn back or to say not yet, or this isn't like the right time for me to go in and do it, what I've learned over time is the times that I then do go back and do it is even better. Like when I went back and did the JMT in 2020 and did the part that I skipped that would have been through snow and ice and heavy rivers, I had a blast. And every second I was on the trail, all I was thinking was, this is so much more my style, my pace, my environment, my weather that I like than it would have been in 2017. And I would have done it then just to say I did and just to avoid getting some flack on the internet and just to like look a little tougher to the people I was with that also went in when I turned back. And to be there 3 years later, laying on a pool float from like in the middle of Ray Lakes, you know, holding a sandwich, was just like, if you gave me both side-by-side experiences, I wouldn't trade that one to go back and do it in 2017, even if you gave me a guarantee you'll be fine, you'll make it through. It's still, I wouldn't have done it because I knew how much better it was when I waited to do it in the conditions that were right for me. So I guess what I can speak to on this is just like, from someone who does turn back and who is like a self-proclaimed chicken, it's not as bad as you think, right? Like, just turn around if you need to. It's not that bad. It's not like, and this is almost aside from what happened with Chris, but just in general, I think we work it up more in our heads that it's going to be a big deal if I don't complete something than it actually is. Like, it can still be a really great time.
Yeah, well said. And I'm very curious to get Twinkle's take on this because of the three of us, you're definitely the most risk pursuant. So I'm curious to know, first and foremost, have there been situations where you've turned back, and whether it's backpacking or other adventures?
Absolutely. I've turned back a lot, especially peak bagging here in Colorado. Yeah. Right. There's like always the, be on the summit by 10 a.m. because of all the thunderstorms. So I've turned around on summit adventures due to snow, due to lightning, even just my most recent mountaineering adventure, we were in the Gores. I was with Rick, Boomerang, and another friend, Michelle, and it was the last nice day of the season. Like, the big snow was coming to the mountains. The very next day was like mid-October maybe. So we had this route planned on a nice ridge, and we got like I don't know, maybe 80% of the way done. Like, we did Ripsaw Ridge, some others, like, all the way back, and the last little bit just had a little too much snow, and we decided to just drop off the ridge, which was dicey in its own way, but nothing compared to continuing on. So
Yeah.
I feel like in the pursuits I've done, I've backed off a lot.
Yeah. I think that's good for people to hear because, like, in my perception, and I think in a lot of people's perception, like, you're a very badass adventurer, both you and your wife. And to know that you turn back so often, I think is a good thing for people that want to follow in your footsteps to understand.
Yeah, I think y'all would maybe perceive me as having a very high risk tolerance, and maybe I do compared to some people, but I think there's different types of risk. And I think the risk that was taken on in this instance was one that isn't necessarily controlled.
Sure.
Because the risk is the weather being so wild, and you can't control the weather. But if I'm up scrambling in the Flatirons without a rope, I can control everything, right? Yeah, there's just a lot of variable in weather going south.
Yeah.
That there isn't in other pursuits that are considered risky, where they're kind of two separate styles of risk. One is very controlled, and the other is you have no control over the weather, and it sounds like it got really nasty out there and was likely the cause of the accident.
Yeah.
More than anything. And I personally don't have that side of my brain that's willing to take on that risk. I also don't get excited about, like, I'm risking it through this weather that could be nasty. That scares me.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Yeah.
I think one thing that kind of I just watched you guys say in passing that I think is also important to point out is we're sitting here saying, like, what we see of Twinkle, he looks like he does a lot better with risk than we do, and he's saying, well, actually not as much as you'd think. And I think that's just like a reminder that, I mean, even listening to this podcast is much like how they say, for example, Instagram is someone's highlight reel of their life.
Right.
Like, you get the exciting stuff. No one's going to listen to this if it's just like an episode of tell us about all the times you backed off, because there's no climax to that story in the way that there is of one where it's like, tell us about this. I mean, even when we interview people who do hikes, if they tell us, hey, I'm going to do this hike this summer, we say, let us know when it's done, because we'd rather talk about it after you've done it than the plans for it. And I think when you're immersed in the outdoor culture and you're following people that are hiking and you're listening to content like this from people that do these big things, you get highlight reels, right? You get the best of when things go right. And just because it's not a big topic of conversation, Twinkle's saying right now, like, hey, I turn back all the time. We've had him on several times. We've never gotten into the turnbacks because it's just not as exciting of a part of conversation. But it doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a great point to highlight. And Twinkle, I also really like what you said about there's a big difference between the variables that you can control and the ones that you can't control. And in this scenario, very likely something that was outside of his control was the downfall. Yeah, but being that you've been on so many more risky adventures relative to what Chauncey and I take on, like, I even see you take on, like, Capitol Peak, something like that makes me nervous. Like, that makes me want to diarrhea. Do you have any other insights that you'd like to relay to the listeners who might be falling into crush it syndrome?
You know, I do think Andrew Skorka's article was really great, and I think it spoke directly to thru-hikers, because inherently thru-hikers don't have to turn around often or say no. Maybe you get 1, 2, 3 times in a long thru-hike where you have to make a decision, do I keep going in a risky situation or turn around or wait till tomorrow? But I think people in other disciplines maybe have that happen more often.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think always just weigh the pros and cons. And more often than not, the cons highly outweigh the pros. But you do have a great point of there are a lot of people who really find enjoyment and passion in life in doing things that are inherently risky. Anytime you're through hiking, that's a risk. You know, there's all sorts of risks all the time. I scramble in the Flatirons, and you call it soloing. And sure, there's no rope, but it's like some people don't see that as that risky who are out there doing it all the time. I think your point is well taken, that if somebody, even a family member, said, oh, Stephen, I'm not okay with you doing that, I'd say, well, that's too bad. Like, this is a passion of mine. I feel so alive when I do it. it's such a great part of my life. I'm not going to stop doing it.
Yeah.
And I think most people would probably say that, you know, who are passionate about doing these things.
Yeah.
And there's, I mean, at the end of the day, when you really look at it, like driving the car to work in a commute is super, super dangerous. Right. And people do that all the time and don't think twice. Shit happens sometimes. And in this situation, I would never want to play Monday morning quarterback and try to determine what this individual did wrong. Mm-hmm. It could be just as simple as shit happens and something really unfortunate happened that was not foreseeable and couldn't have been planned and prepared for. And I think sometimes it's good to leave it at that.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes there's good, healthy conversation around it, but trying to be understanding that somebody did lose their life, and let's not, you know, let's have the conversation be constructive.
For sure.
Not destructive.
Well said, and I think that's a good note to end on, unless you have everything you want to add to it.
No.
Okay.
That was great.
This next question, I'm sure will not be spicy at all. Chauncey's getting her book open, but this is, I forget who sent this in because we don't have a note here, but the general question is about backpacking with a gun. I'm sure we've seen the question pop up a million times, and it's very difficult to have this conversation without it getting political or angry, but I think we've got 3 adults in the room who can accomplish that.
And if we can't, boy, is this going to be one to watch on YouTube.
Right, for sure. But Chauncey covered the subject in her book, so we're going to kick it off with her. It sounds like you're going to read an excerpt.
Yeah, so this is in Hiking from Home. I had included a section on safety, and obviously a big common question people get from their support systems is, are you carrying protection? And so I had kind of succinctly written out my thoughts in this, and I figure if I'm going to tell you guys, I might as well repeat the best way that I've been able to suss it out in my brain. So I'll say my thoughts on it from how I wrote it, and then after you guys give your input, I'll read those 2 quotes.
Cool.
I've got 2 quotes from 2 different people I'd interviewed, one pro-carrying and one anti-carrying, just to give both sides. Like, I really didn't want I didn't want the way I framed it to be something that turned people off to wanting to even read it, because they see that I wouldn't carry one and then they think, well, that's what all of this is going to be about. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I think it's important to say, hey, wherever you stand on this, we will objectively give both sides, and then you can take it and make the best decision for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wrote, are you going to carry a gun? This seems to be one of the more popular questions that family and friends will ask. Having a loved one head into the wilderness with strangers makes the question of carrying protection understandable, though after 5,000 miles on long-distance trails, I believe it is unnecessary. My particular stance is that no, I do not need to carry a gun on the trail. While every now and then a tragedy does occur, the likelihood of being harmed by another person on the trail is far less likely than other places. I am more likely to face injury driving my car to work. I am more likely to be attacked by another person in a city than on a trail in the woods. That being said, I understand that not everyone's views are the same, so while I'll defend my stance, I'll also share opinions from people who do carry a gun on trail and hikers who have carried and decided to stop. Had I wanted to carry a gun on a long-distance trail, I would need to do extensive research. Gun laws vary state to state, and for trails like the Appalachian Trail, which spans 14 states, the Pacific Crest Trail, which covers 3 states, or the Continental Divide Trail, which goes through 5 states, the hiker would need to learn each state's specific laws on how the gun has to be carried, how it has to be concealed, and if it can be loaded or not, and other requirements that go into carrying responsibly. Does your hiker have experience holding, shooting, and carrying for a weapon? While anyone can theoretically pick up a gun and pull the trigger, it takes some training to operate a firearm safely and accurately. The last gun I fired was a Red Ryder BB gun that my brother and I would shoot at a water jug on the back deck when I was young. The goal was to hit the O and pull and spring, but I rarely hit the jug. For me, to bring a gun on trail, I'd want to practice firing accurately, otherwise I'd potentially provide a weapon to my attacker. I'd also be concerned about how I'd respond in a high-stress, adrenaline-filled situation, given that operating a gun is not second nature to me. I'd be worried about fumbling, doing something wrong under pressure, or risking an accident to myself or another hiker in the process. And to be honest, in a dangerous situation, I think I'd freeze up before pulling the trigger. For states that do not allow concealed carry in a holster, having a gun seems useless. The common argument against carrying a gun on the trail is that if it's stored inside of the hiker's backpack, it's not quickly accessible when needed. This also applies to states that don't allow the weapon to be loaded. If someone wants to attack me, I can't call a timeout to load my weapon. In talking to hikers who conceal carry in everyday life, I asked if in those states they would consider sending the gun home, and learned that even that seems like a hassle. A gun cannot be mailed from the post office, but must be sent from a gun shop or a location with a federal firearms license, FFL. Furthermore, on wetter trails, moisture management can be an issue. I spoke with a hiker who conceal carries on a day-to-day basis. He explained that the gun he brings hiking is one of the lightest on the market, but also metal-based. He spoke about how on a trail like the Appalachian Trail, he would have to carry a cleaning kit and perform regular maintenance to avoid degradation and rust. This adds a time-consuming task when free time is already limited. As for wildlife, all of the concealed carriers I spoke to pointed out that the weapon they would take on trail wouldn't be a high enough caliber to protect against an animal attack. If anything, it would just make the animal angry. Animal attacks on long-distance trails are incredibly rare. Most hikers will view a bear sighting on the AT or PCT as a special moment, while hikers on the CDT carry bear spray that is more effective in a grizzly encounter than a gun. On top of everything, carrying a gun means carrying more weight, and we've already established that an overloaded hiker faces a higher chance of injury. The number one reason that hikers, gun enthusiasts, and those with anti-gun beliefs alike choose to forego carrying a gun is that it just isn't worth the weight. And then I put a hypothetical quote from a family member saying, "But I'm still worried about my hiker's safety. Just because something bad doesn't happen often doesn't mean it can't happen to my hiker." And I said, "I understand it is perfectly reasonable to worry about the safety of a loved one embarking on an adventure that is new to you both. As I mentioned earlier, it's hard to understand the culture of a long-distance trail if you have not spent time on one yourself. The unknown causes fear, and we naturally want to combat that fear by making sure our loved ones are as prepared as possible. A gun may or may not be part of your hiker safety plan. Ultimately, the hiker has to decide. Ideally, that decision will follow reflection on personal experience with guns, research on laws in each state of the selected trail, and considerations on weight. If your hiker is not already a concealed carrier, has rarely held a gun, or has never held a gun, think about if this is the most sensible option and try to understand the reasoning if your hiker is against it. I carry pepper spray in my fanny pack on all of my long-distance hikes instead. I have never had to use it, but for me it seems like enough to buy time to get away from a situation if I need to. I also carry a knife, which primarily ends up being used to spread peanut butter on bread. But again, it helps me sleep at night and doesn't weigh much. One effective way your hiker can take personal responsibility for his or her safety is by taking self-defense courses. Learning situational awareness and self-defense can be more useful than fumbling for a weapon that the hiker doesn't have experience with. Gifting a course to your hiker, or even better, taking it together, is one way to ease your mind regarding safety while simultaneously showing support for the hiker. So that's kind of my succinct thoughts on why I would or wouldn't.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Mm-hmm.
It does seem to me like a lot of the people, at least my perception of a lot of people that are pro-gun, typically come from more gun familiar cultures. So I would suspect that they're good with guns, have experience, like know how to carry it properly, all the gun safety, and feel confident shooting. If you're not familiar with a gun and you're toying with taking it on the trail, definitely don't. Definitely, not only are you a risk to other people, but you're a bigger risk to yourself. Certainly. So there are, I think, safer ways to protect yourself on trail. I think you said it really well. There a couple things I would elaborate on is not only these things are regulated by state, but it also can come down to county and city. That New York and California don't allow open carry at all, except with certain licensed exceptions. In Colorado, however, it's actually legal to open carry on all state land and national forests. So you could conceivably do really any backpacking in Colorado and carry a gun legally. One of the trickier things with learning gun legality, especially if you're crossing state lines, is the reciprocity of concealed carry, and it gets very confusing as to which states operate with other states. So that would be a research project like you alluded to. And then just another little nuance is some state parks don't allow guns even if they can legally be carried in the state. So sometimes the state park regulation supersedes what the state says. So in my little research, the moral of the story is for shorter backpacking trips, determining the legality of carrying a gun is actually not that complicated. Like it might take a call or two or just like a quick Google search. You should get your answer. Doing something like the AT is going to be way more complicated. So it would be a research project, but can conceivably be done for sure.
That was something that I like when I was talking to the people that typically carry every day, right? And I was asking, well, do you do it on trail? The guy that I had spoken to that did the AT, the reason why he had said no, which was going into like you can't mail things from a post office. It has to be a gun shop or a FFA, I think was the abbreviation. Is like if that's not in the town you're going through, like some of these towns are small, you have to find a way to hitch to one.
Yeah.
And then you have to find a place to send it to that's either going to be like close to where you can pick it up at the next spot on trail or home where they'll mail it back to the next place it's, close to being able to pick it up on trail. And then you got to find a way to get there. It's like it just adds. And so
also, the
ideally,
ethics of hitchhiking with somebody and then having a weapon and not disclosing that, like legally that might be okay, but like letting somebody in your car that's carrying a weapon that you don't know about is ethically a different thing, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a different bag of worms because
Yeah.
I think we could spend a whole nother question on that. But yeah, I think from what I gathered from the people that are like super pro guns is that it just like it's too much of a hassle if it's a big trail.
Yeah. So I think the gun question is broken down into two different categories, right? Like the practicality of hiking with a gun, which is what I think most of this has been about, just figuring out the laws and the various loopholes and all that good stuff. But you also did a good job touching on, should you hike with a gun? Like, do you need it for safety purposes? And at least with every like thru-hiker that I know, everyone kind of arrives at the same answer. And this might be a cultural thing. Like we all tend to be the same age, and I think maybe our thinking tends to be alike. And everyone that I know says no. I'm in that camp too. And I should also say that I own a gun. Like I'm not anti-Second Amendment in any shape or form. I want to get into hunting and I intend to get into hunting. So I'm not coming at it at all from the perspective of like people shouldn't have guns. I own a gun. But if you look at the actual risks involved with backpacking, there's two categories. You mentioned them both: people and Clay Bonneman Evans, Pony, who's been on the show.
He's the second category.
No.
People and Pony. Worry about them both.
Yeah, no. From the people standpoint, Pony did a really good article on the Trek a number of years ago, breaking down the statistics of the murder percentages. This was right after what was the name of it was the year that you hiked
2019 for the AT.
Yeah, what was the name of the James Jordan, the guy who stabbed someone to death? Sovereign. Yeah, so that was obviously like a huge news story, and that every time something like that happens, which is fortunately not very often, like this conversation of like, should you hike with a gun comes up. And he did a really good statistical breakdown. You should read the article, but the moral of the story is that since people have been measuring murders on the AT in 1974, there have been 10 murders. And he did a statistical breakdown of like the number of people who are on the AT in a given year compared to the murder rate in the U.S. at large. You're 1,000 times more likely to be murdered just being anywhere in the U.S. than on the AT. I don't know of any statistical breakdown that's been done on other trails, but I imagine the AT is probably the highest likelihood of being murdered. I don't think any other trail can say that they have 10 murders. So if the most dangerous trail from a murder perspective is 1,000 times less likely to end in murder relative to anywhere else in the U.S., I think that says a lot about the safety. And then the other thing which you touched on is, the perception of animal deaths, or the risk of death by animal. Did some digging into the numbers here. Grizzly bears, since 2010, have accounted for 29 deaths in North America, only 12 in the lower 48. And I'll admit, and we could probably all attest to this, that grizzlies are probably the scariest thing in the backcountry. If you're in a place with grizzly bears, like that's going to be at the top of your mind. Put a pin on that. We'll come back to that. Black bears have accounted for 17 deaths since 2010 and only 5 in the lower 48. And then some of these are just kind of fun. Wolves have killed 2 people since 2002 and only 1 in the U.S. and mountain lions have been 5 since the year 2000. So as you can see, animals are not a statistical real concern. Grizzlies are maybe slightly a different category, but we'll come back to that. Just another fun figure. Since 1970, the top 8 deadliest animals accounted for 299 deaths in North America, and this includes snakes, sharks, and alligators. Compare this to accidental deaths by firearm, which is 430 per year. So in the last 60 years, there have been half as many deaths by animals as there are annually by accidental deaths by firearm. So this is what we're saying earlier. Like, if you're not comfortable with a firearm, if you haven't gone through gun safety training courses, you didn't grow up with guns, you don't know all the gun safety precautions like the back of your hand, then you're a greater risk to other people and to yourself just based on the statistics. Again, I wanted to come back to the grizzly thing. Like I said, grizzlies do scare me. I'm sure they scare you guys too. In that scenario, I do want protection. However, to kill a grizzly with a gun, and you brought this up, Chance, you need a very high caliber pistol, and you'd have to hit a 4 foot by 4 foot target on its skull to even have a chance to kill it. Now, keep in mind that a grizzly is running at you at 35 miles per hour. You're overrun with adrenaline. The odds that anybody's hitting that, like, you'd have to be like a trained military person to even have a shot with that. Like, the average person is going to shit their pants, miss.
You'd have to be Tom Cruise.
For sure. For sure, you'd have to be Tom Cruise. And although, admittedly, the science on the subject is not perfect, studies show that bear spray is way more effective against grizzlies compared to guns. And this is largely for the reason mentioned above. Like, yeah, if you hit a grizzly in the right spot, it has a good chance of killing it, but the likelihood of that happening is very small. And if a bear comes in contact with bear spray, it generally acts as a deterrent, whereas if you shoot a grizzly and you don't kill it, it will kill you. It's coming after you.
Now you have an angry grizzly.
Yeah.
An adrenaline-pumped grizzly.
For sure. For sure. And, you know, there are stories of people using bear spray and the bear still kills them. There's that famous one that the guy had, like, his eye gouged out, basically. This happened a few years ago, but, like, he was on the cover of Backpacker magazine. Like, it was a very famous story. But statistically speaking, you're way better off with bear spray compared to a gun. So back to the risk of other people, the stats show that the risk is incredibly small, but obviously there are enough news-grabbing stories over recent years to show that there are rare instances, and no one wants to be the exception. The operative thing to keep in mind is that stats show death by accidental gun discharge is much more likely to happen compared to being murdered. So unless you have incredibly sufficient training and experience with guns, you're objectively at a much higher risk to protect yourself with one compared to using other forms. Mace or bear spray are effective tools for protecting yourself, like Chance mentioned. And you're not putting other people at fatal risk with those tools as well.
I would even say, like, if you aren't, like, I'm not talking to the people that carry every day that are, like, super well versed in this stuff. You guys probably know more than I do, right? Like, I'm not your expert. For the people that are in the boat with me, where it's like, could this be something that helps me sleep better at night on trail? I would recommend, like, start looking into the process, you know, like, take a gun course, take a lesson, go to a shooting range where you can, like, handle these guns and learn from a professional how to use them, and shoot at a target and see how often you hit it. Because, like, back to what I was saying about trying to hit the O in the Poland Spring jug and not even hitting the jug most of the time is, you know, you don't necessarily need us to tell you to or not to take one. You could self-evaluate and you could say, wow, like, I fucking suck at this, you know, like, this isn't worth me carrying. And you don't need anyone else's opinions in it to do that. Like, if you're curious enough to think, is this something I want to do? Start by pursuing it and seeing how far you get until you know either, yeah, I definitely want to do this is for me, or no, I am a liability, you know, like, that's where I stand.
Yeah. And to give my complete thought on it, like, if you know the legality of carrying the gun in the region you're going to be backpacking in, and you have the sufficient training and experience in safely handling a gun, and you want to carry, by all means do it. Like, that's your right. And you don't need me to say that. You don't need anyone else to say that. I think that's where people get triggered, no pun, is, like, obviously you can do it. This is a question of whether it makes sense to do it. And I spelled out my reasoning. Sean spelled out hers. They're similar. And you can make your own decisions. Do you have anything you want to add on that,
No,
You don't dip your toe into the beehive.
Yeah, I mean, I've got strong opinions, but they don't really matter. I think that's such a personal choice. I don't understand the people who want to carry guns because the statistics just don't back it up.
Yeah.
I don't understand the fear and whatnot that pushes somebody to go that route. But I also am aware that I grew up in a family and culture and area where people didn't have guns. People weren't walking around with guns on their hip belts.
Sure.
So it's something that it's kind of funny. It scares me. Like, I see somebody with a gun, I'm like, oh, that's unsettling.
Yeah.
Right? I don't like that. What's wrong with this person? Why do they feel they need to have a gun out here?
Sure.
That's unsettling.
Yeah.
Because you definitely don't need it.
Yeah.
You know, in my opinion, I'm out here, I'm like, you don't need that gun. What are you doing with it?
No, it's just funny how different
scary.
cultures are the same, because where I grew up, that was totally the case as well. And then you come to Colorado, and like, depends on where you are, there's bubbles everywhere, but it's definitely much more of like a pro-gun culture. I think I saw a stat that like 40% of Coloradans, I don't know if it's Coloradans or households, have guns. So, you know,
they're probably the same ones that got the native stickers slapped to the back of their guns.
oh, there's
no,
a
should we edit
high
that out?
correlation for sure. No, it's good. But yeah, moral of the story is I think if you feel very strongly about carrying a gun, no one's going to tell you they can't do it, obviously. But the reason why people feel strongly about not carrying a gun is just based on you probably don't need it, and there's probably safer ways to protect yourself against these perceived risks, and the perceived risks are actually very small.
For the quotes I'll give, just to give some other opinions besides our three. This is from Bruce. He's a retired police officer in Ontario. And he said, gun issues are less dominant in Canada. From a Canadian perspective on Canadian territory, I would say absolutely 100% no way. From a Canadian on American territory, I would say absolutely 99% no way. I'm saving 1% as a variable for things I may not know. The fact of the matter is that research has dictated and shown that if you're carrying a gun, you're more likely to get hurt than if you're not. I don't think it's any question that it's better to not have one on the trail. The two most dangerous animals in the backwoods are humans and dogs. People talk about bears and cougars, but more people are hurt by humans and dogs than any other animals out there. Statistically speaking, the likelihood of a human injuring you on the trail is way less likely than in a city and almost any other part of the country. Unfortunately, people don't respond to numbers, they respond to feelings, and that's one of the dangerous issues in our societies. Odds are you're more likely to get hurt with a gun than without it, and odds are that you're safer on trail than pretty much anywhere else. Those two added together is a no-brainer to me.
Yeah.
I think one of the things you said, too, that you read out of the book earlier that it caught me was the person who was quoting that they would feel they wouldn't even use the gun. They'd be too in shock. I'd be more scared of the person who is too quick to pull the trigger. How many times does that happen?
Yeah, right.
You don't read the situation right and you get too scared.
Somebody's eating a Snickers bar.
Right. Rather than being like too scared and frozen to react, you're reacting too soon without reading the situation correctly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. This one is from John. He's from Florida. He said, I'm a Second Amendment supporter, but I have mixed emotions because the laws are different in every state. You have to know them in every state that you're going to go through. That being said, I probably will carry a gun along the way. I'm licensed to carry in Florida, and Florida has reciprocity. What was the word you used? Reciprocity.
That's tough.
I know, and I wrote it. Well, I didn't write the quote.
I was actually going to make that a
typed
future Triple Crown of the words that you can't say.
Hard words.
Yeah.
Reciprocity. Put that on mine. With a number of states, so I have to research if any of those will coincide with the ones I'm going through. There still might be quirks respective to that state's laws with where you have to carry and whether it can be loaded or not. I don't know specifically, but some of the nuances might be having the chamber empty and the magazine out of the gun. I would preferably carry on a chest holder, loaded, but completely concealed. I use a small caliber .380 semi-automatic handgun that weighs a pound at least. I have no concerns with the safety issue. I've been around guns my whole life, and it can't misfire if the safety is on and there isn't a round in the chamber. Legal gun holding isn't something we boast about. We do it for our own protection or for the protection of our loved ones. We have it just in case, like an insurance policy. I suspect more people carry than we think, they just don't broadcast it. It's hard for me to believe, but I know people who have never even held a gun in their hands before. I imagine it might bring nervousness to some people, and that's not something that I want, so I wouldn't flaunt it. It only takes a few seconds for something or someone to be on top of you, so not having it directly on you would negate the purpose. Obviously, I hopefully never have to use it. I don't expect to ever have to.
Yeah. And that's the sort of person that I want with a gun. Like, he sounds very thoughtful about it. So.
Right. And he's going to carry it, but it's like talking to you, you don't make me nervous.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Yeah,
Totally. Yeah. I don't think there's much else to say on the subject.
No.
I did like the comment of, it's the lightest gun on the market. This affects
fiber.
my base weight the least.
Yeah. Can't wait for the emails on that one.
Yeah.
Podcast at thetrek.co. Okay. We've got some less heavy questions up ahead, so we can all take
now
a
that
drink
we've gotten
now.
through our clickbait.
Yeah. Okay, this one is for you, Twinks.
Ooh.
Of all the trails in the world that you've been on, what are your top 3 recommendations?
That I've done. My favorite's the Hayduke, by far and away. I love the area. I think it's the prettiest place in the world.
Would you do it again?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Do
you intend to?
I think I will. Yeah, at some point. The thing I really love about the Hayduke is you can make it your own. There's so many different routes you can take. So I think I've mentioned this before, but I say I did the Hayduke, but really I did like maybe 60% of it.
Yeah.
And the other 40% was like the across Utah route or rafting on the Colorado. So I could do the Hayduke. I could say I'm doing the Hayduke Trail again and do almost 100% something different.
Sure.
Which would be really fun. It'd be same area, same, Moab to Zion. But
you guys did pack rafting in the first go, right?
we did. We pack rafted like 150 miles.
Would you do more or less the next time, or have you not gotten that far?
I think we'd do similar probably. Maybe less. I think we'd want to raft the whole Grand Canyon. And I think we would probably not raft the Escalante and maybe go through Stevens Canyon and Halls Canyon alternate.
Yeah.
I've heard so many people rave about that, and
Yeah.
kind of feel like I missed out a little bit there.
From the interviews that we've done, and we've now talked to quite a few people who have done the Hayduke.
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall many saying that they've done significant miles pack rafting, if at all.
No, but if you are and you're one of the guests that we've had and you're planning on it, invite me.
Yeah, right.
Because I want to do that.
You got one sitting to your right.
Yeah, but I ask him to adopt me every time I see him, and I still haven't gotten my papers.
Do you come with the dog?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Okay, so Hayduke is one.
Hayduke is one. Yep. I think the one.
By the way, we should plug your other episodes because you've talked a lot about all of your treks all over the world.
Yeah.
Like you've touched every continent except for Antarctica, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Just about now.
Yeah. You've seen a lot. So this is coming from a lot of experience.
Yeah. I think the one in Europe I liked the most was the Pyrenees High Route, the HRP, Hot Route Pyrenees.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that to anybody. It was so diverse. You go coast to coast. The mountains are different the whole time. It's 500 miles, so it's manageable with a lot of people's schedules, much more so than long distance trail.
Yeah.
And I'd say the third one, I just love the PCT. It was my first really long one.
A little surprised to hear that 2 of them are in the U.S. I'm happy to hear that because those are attainable. But yeah.
Yeah, I love U.S. hiking. I think U.S. hiking is the best of anywhere I've been. Our trail system is phenomenal. Our public lands is phenomenal. The freedom to roam is unmatched.
Yeah.
And the variety of terrain, too, just lends itself to great adventures. But, yeah, the PCT is such a beautiful trail the whole way through. And my personal experience on it was quite nice. So, yeah, those would be my 3.
Yeah. If we're going to tweak the question, we'll keep the hot route, the Pyrenees High Route.
Yeah.
We'll keep that one. Let's just do 3 international hikes.
Okay.
So 2 other ones.
I like it. So the Hot Route Pyrenees.
Yeah.
I think Grace and I did the Wayawash circuit. I guess it was 2 years ago now, 2022. That was really nice and beautiful and had
Remind me
freedom.
where that one was?
It's down in Peru,
Okay.
in the Wayawash Mountains. Right. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think everybody has a little different way of pronouncing it. But that was really beautiful and took about 10 days, so much more attainable. Very affordable, too, getting there and back and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That one was great. And then I'd say, I really want to say the 3 Passes trek in Nepal. That was so nice, but with the added rules that have happened since, where you have to have a guide,
Yeah.
I think that really changed the way that feels. So
from a cost standpoint, or just not having the
flexibility and freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, you go with a Sherpa, and they're really gonna for better or worse, sometimes it could be better, dictate where you're going, where you're staying, etc., and you lose that freedom that Americans have to just kind of do what you want and get into a village and find a place to stay. You know, it's gonna be much more planned, and you're gonna be on somebody else's schedule. So I don't think my time there was great. I don't know that I'd recommend it now. I'd say maybe the Altavia 2 in Italy in the Dolomites. Had great food and wine.
I was actually, this is a selfish side thing, I was going to ask you about the Dolomites hiking you did, because I'll be going to Italy in May.
Oh, no kidding.
Not in a hiking context. I'm going with my boyfriend's parents. But I wanted to see if you thought that there was any of the trails or pieces of them that you'd done in the Dolomites that I could take Garrett, a non-hiker, on where he wouldn't hate the activity.
Yeah, absolutely. The Dolomites are a lower section of the Alps. You know, it's kind of like the Rocky Mountains have all these different sub-ranges. The Dolomites of the Alps are lower elevation, so they'll open up a little bit sooner. So May, it's too early to maybe do a through hike, but there's probably a lot you can do in the Dolomites that time of year. I know Grace and I have 2 weeks off in June, and we're trying to decide what to do. We might go back to the Dolomites because it's so pretty.
Yeah, it's a great area.
Yeah, and the Altavia 2 was really fantastic. Another one that's short, it's like 110 miles or something like that, so you can knock it out pretty quick. You don't need a ton of time to do it, and it's just gorgeous the entire way. It's beautiful. The culture's great.
Is it super exposed? Like, would someone with vertigo, me, do poorly on it with exposure?
Yeah, I'd say there's much more than what you would get on, like, the Pacific Crest Trail or John Muir Trail or Colorado Trail or anything out here. They do have, like, via ferratas and, like, ladders you got to go up on kind of cliff sides. I don't think there was anything too risky, and there were alternates around some of these areas, but more so on a mile-for-mile basis than I think what people would be used to out here. But nothing crazy. Yeah. Nothing where you're like, whoa, I need ropes right now or anything like that. You know? Yeah.
Good clarifying question for our guest.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Next question comes from Willie B _714. He asks, what's the most overrated piece of gear? This could go in a lot of directions. Curious to get your guys' thoughts.
I'll start. A raincoat. I think that they soak through very frequently. Every time I've brought a raincoat, I've gotten pissed off at my raincoat because it soaks through. And I mean, to be expected with like how frequently we hike through areas that get rain, and how with through hiking there's a lack of indoor time for things to dry off in between getting wet and then getting wet again. But honestly, the best times I've had in rain are with like the $5 clear poncho I found at a gas station, and I have it hidden under a bookcase in my living room. I don't know why that's where my brain decided I'll always remember it's there, but I always remember it's there. And every time I need to go on a hike, like I pull out that same one, and it's great. It covers my backpack. It covers me. It's got a hood. It's not like raincoats aren't tight to your skin, but they're tighter to your skin than a poncho that literally doesn't have sleeves. And so you're not really sweating through it because it's like a blanket over you rather than wrapped around you, if that makes any sense.
More airflow. Yeah.
And so once I got that poncho, which was kind of like an accidental, oh crap, I need something purchase, I don't think I would go back to carrying a raincoat on a trail. I think I'm poncho girl for life.
Yeah. I like it.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Are you poncho boy?
I am. I did the entire AT in a poncho. The Frog Togs one, is that?
Yeah.
Mine was the clear gas station one. That doesn't have a brand.
Okay.
It is gas station.
It's even better than the Frog. Because the Frog Togs I thought was cool because it's like $12 or
Yeah.
something, you know, something so cheap.
Yeah.
Well, Frog Togs have the little like felty inside. That's nice.
Yeah. I feel like a poncho could be tough if you're in an environment that's really windy without like a forest to break it. The AT lended itself to do it in a poncho. I actually did the PCT without a raincoat or poncho.
Really?
I was an idiot.
Did you have an umbrella?
No. I was like one of those, classic, like 25-year-old males, a lot of
Yeah.
bravado. Like, oh, I don't think I need one. I'll just hike faster. Or
Yeah.
camp, you know?
Yeah, right.
We
I'm
gotta-
too cold. I'll camp.
We got to clip this back to at the start of the episode where he goes, the one thing that scares me is weather.
I also don't get excited about, like, I'm risking it through this weather that could be nasty. That scares me.
Yeah.
More than anything.
Sarah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really stupid of me to do, and looking back at it, I kind of laugh, like the dumb things you do when you're young.
Yeah,
I would
right.
never do it again.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't recommend it, but at the time I was just like, oh, it's less weight. I'm going to use this thing like a handful of times on this trail. Why even carry one?
Yeah.
And my main thought was like, if it's really raining, I'll just stop and get in the tent. And I did have to do that several times. But
Yeah, that's a good one because
I do like that one a lot.
there's definitely a trade-off between like the breathability function of a rain jacket and it just not performing its duty at all.
And you're going to sweat on your back like crazy.
Yeah.
With a shell like that and a backpack.
Yeah.
Oh, and when
Like,
you're
good luck.
wearing like even like a short sleeve shirt or something underneath it, like if it's hot out and you're not wearing long sleeves under the raincoat, when you can start to feel the beads of sweat coming down
It's terrible.
under the fabric of the raincoat, that's a feeling I don't like.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to do mine because
Yeah.
it is very similar. An umbrella. A hiking umbrella.
Ooh.
I laugh at everybody who uses that.
I'm one of them.
You
Yeah,
are?
Zach
Yeah.
is. I had
Oh,
to
it
carry
looks so
Zach's umbrella for
goofy.
him for a mile.
It looks so goofy, and my idea is, you can wear a raincoat and actually be protected, and if you're using it for the sun, put on a sun hoodie. Like, actually have something over your skin rather than like an umbrella where you're trying to get to the sun.
Yeah.
Right,
All right, I'll
trying
be
to
your
aim
devil's
it.
advocate here. Because I cook in sun hoodies, and I know some are better than others. Like the more synthetic fabrics tend to be cooler than like the natural fabric options.
Right, yep.
But the nice thing about an umbrella is that you've got a gap between where the shade is being cast
For
and
air.
the thing. So like with the sun hoodie, you're actually trapping the heat that your body's generating. And I sweat a lot. I generate a lot of heat when I'm backpacking or doing anything. But yeah, having the umbrella, I can still be in short sleeves. I can direct where the shade needs to go.
Right.
It does look goofy. That's a fact. But
Yep.
I'm a married man. I don't care about that. And in windy environments, it becomes a sail. It's more of a liability than anything else.
Right. And how often does it rain where it's actually just coming down?
I don't know if I ever actually used it for rain on the PCT.
Oh, okay.
It was purely just
It's
for
a-
sun.
it's a sun umbrella.
Sun
Okay.
protection. And being a ginger, like I have to have a plan for the sun.
Right.
But yeah, I haven't, generally speaking, done too well with sun hoodies, except for like short stints. But like if I'm in an exposed area all day and I don't think it's going to be terribly windy, umbrella all day.
All day?
Yeah, just because it keeps me
Interesting.
much cooler.
Yeah. All right. Good. I like that. Devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Patent pending, they should make sun ponchos where you don't have to hold it. Because when I had to carry when we did the Trans Catalina Trail and I had to carry this umbrella over your head
Yeah.
for a mile, like my arms got tired and I
Yeah.
was switching what arms to carry it with. But if they had one of those cool hats, like the umbrella hats that you see, but it also had like sun walls, I'd wear that.
We just need a Charlie Brown cloud.
Yeah.
Right? Just follow you everywhere. Give you shade.
Our younger listeners might not know who Charlie Brown is.
Aging myself.
Yeah. Damn. I am going to pivot. I'm not going to directly answer this question. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go with the piece of gear that I think still stands the most room for improvement, and that's footwear, just generally speaking. Because for the majority of my backpack, at least in recent years, I've kind of gone between the Lone Peaks and the Speed Goats. And although they're very comfortable and they perform really well, like I'm happy with the important things, it still sucks the durability and the longevity of these things. Like it becomes your most expensive piece of gear. Like over a 2,000-mile hike, you have to go through 5-6 more pairs. And I think it's like with technology, it's planned obsolescence. Like there are more durable materials out there, and especially the bigger brands, I won't mention names, Ultra, I think that they could give you more durable materials, and they just don't, because then why? You're not going to buy as many pairs of trail runners.
Yeah.
So
That's a hot take.
yeah, I think what I've heard really good things about the Topos, the
Right. Guthrie loves those. That's
Yeah.
what he uses. What would you use on a thru hike right now if you were going to go?
I'd be really interested to try those. I've been living in the speed goats for the last couple of years just
Okay.
because they're so comfortable. I'm concerned that my knees are going to go to junk, and I like the midsole. I know there's some debate as to whether that's actually beneficial, but we had what's her face, Morgan.
I love when you call a doctor what's her face.
Yeah. What's her Blaze?
Yeah, Blaze Physio.
Yeah, Blaze Physio. She reiterated my stance that she thinks the cushy midsole is actually good for knees, so I'm going to go with that.
Okay.
But I really like the speed goats. I just would not like to have to rotate them out every like 300 to 500 miles. 'Cause
Right.
it just gets expensive.
Quick pivot before we move on, because I think that was a great impromptu question, which is if you were to do a thru hike right now, what shoes would you wear?
Good question.
This is a good question. I think the durability, that's a great point. And if you remember a few years back, Solomon tried to make a thru hiking shoe.
Yeah.
They gave one to each CDTC staff member at the time,
Oh,
which
nice.
was phenomenal.
Yeah,
That was so
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And mine are still kicking.
No shit.
Yeah. And
Do you know how
it's-
many miles you've got on them?
It's all just walking around town and stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't like the grip very much for actually being on trail, but those would last a full thru hike. But they never really caught on. I'm not exactly sure why. They were really durable and tough on the bottom, and the top was like just mesh, so like really light and breathable, which wouldn't be a good running shoe by any means because
Yeah.
heavy and clunky under your foot.
Right.
But brands have tried.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd bring that up. I don't know that I would have worn that on a thru hike. If I was doing it right now, the shoe I really like is I'm a La Sportiva fanboy. Their shoes just fit my feet well.
You have narrow feet.
I have very narrow
Yeah.
European feet.
European feet.
Yeah, you know the Euro brands, they're all like so narrow.
Yeah,
So
for
Yeah.
it works for me. I know for a lot of people it doesn't. I get in a speed goat or ultras and my foot's swimming. I can't do
Yeah,
it.
sure.
But the Jackal 2 with BOA, those
The bow is a good technology.
the BOA is a great innovation in shoes. It hugs really well. It's all mesh, and then they actually Sportiva, and I'm sure other shoes do this well also, but they have like a built-in ultralight gaiter that keeps all of the dirt and stuff out. So the combo of the BOA getting a really nice fit and then like a really light gaiter that even just like an ankle sock
Yeah.
would be high enough to be over so it wouldn't rub.
Yeah.
I think are two innovations that like, shoot, I wish this was around when I was doing the PCT
Sure.
and
Can you
CDT and stuff.
define BOA? Because I have no idea what you're
Oh,
talking
right.
about.
Okay, so BOA is a different type of lacing system.
Ah.
And it's kind of, I don't know how to, it's like a circle that's on the top, and it's like the lace is really small and almost like metal. And you like twist it to tighten it.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's more popular
Yeah.
with like snowboard binding and that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Like it's just a quick tightening and untightening system.
Really quick on and off, which is also great. You're not having to like untie, retie. And then having a shoe with a built-in gaiter that's actually comfortable, not super high,
Yeah.
is awesome. Like when I go out on trips and do peak bagging and backpacking, that's what I'm using, because then you never have to like shake out your shoes and
Yeah.
stuff. And it was such a pain
Yeah.
on the PCT and CDT and stuff. I remember always having to do that.
I might be the only person that's experienced this because I know Jabba swears by gators as well, but I tried gators on the PCT because, yeah, on the PCT you're stopping every 5 miles to like just kick out pebbles and whatnot. But when I put them on, it also, for me, was trapping too much heat.
Oh,
and I'd
right.
get like a rash where the gator was.
Did you use Dirty Girls?
No, I was using the ones that integrated with Ultra. So maybe I just was on the wrong brand.
Well, those are similar. Dirty Girls were great. That's what I used when, 2014, 15. And they were awesome, but it's an additional layer on top of your shoe. So it does make it much more hot, which this is a much better innovation, the ones that I use on the Sportivas, because it's just built in. It's like, rather than the top just ending, it just ends with like kind of a gaiter with a little elastic to like kind of be around you. So it's not
Okay.
like an additional layer over your shoe
Yeah.
that the gaiter's on.
Yeah.
And that traps all the heat.
What are you wearing right there, though? That's a pretty aggressive tread.
Yeah, these are the Cascadias. These are what I wore
nice.
when I was thru hiking back
Yeah.
in the day.
They look very clean.
Scott Urich. They're brand new. They got my dog's blood on them though. Yeah, Scott Urich shoe.
Gotta
right?
stop kicking your dog.
Yeah.
I also interpreted the question of like the most overrated piece of gear that we use. Do you guys have any thoughts on things? I guess you answered the question as if things that you didn't use because you said you don't use a rain jacket anymore.
Sure. Are you saying like brands, or are you saying
No, like I think the low hanging fruit here is like when people think of hiking, and I'm sure we've beaten this to death, but like boots, like there probably are good situations for boots. And I'd love to get someone, Lieutenant Cuckoo Bird backpacks exclusively in boots, and he's a very accomplished backpacker, so he'd give a good devil's advocate take.
I mean, I can give devil's advocate to boots, which is that when I flipped north in the PCT, I was killing myself keeping up with a group that was hiking at a faster pace than me, and I was at the point where I had a knee brace on each knee and an ankle brace on each ankle, like just the ones you buy at Walgreens or whatever that just make it a little less painful with every step. But I was at that point where I had one on each knee and one on each ankle, and I just like, I had to hold on to both railings going upstairs in town, right? Like I couldn't even get up the steps to the post office because I was just limping everywhere. And I had to get a new pair of shoes anyway, and I put on boots that had the ankle support. And for the state that my ankles were in at that point, it was like a flood of relief to have something just hugging my ankles the way that those braces were. And when I was walking, it was like I just had that support where I desperately needed it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if I could have kept going without the boots. So
what were you using prior to that?
Trail runners.
I mean, but was it like a zero drop that you hadn't trained for properly?
No, I started with the wrong shoes. I started with like these super light road runner shoes that I had used on day hikes, and I got to Mount Laguna and was just like, these are the wrong freaking things. Thank God I didn't buy 6 pairs, which is what I had wanted to do. And I got a pair of shoes there. They were either like Merrells or Ultras or, you know, one of the standard stock ones that they would have carried. Mm-hmm. And they were great. And if I had been feeling fine, they would have continued to be great. But I think it goes back to like knowing your body. If you know you need that extra support, you know, a million people telling you to use trail runners isn't going to make your feet feel better.
Right. Cool. Okay. We can move on. Love this question. I know we've talked about it a lot, but it bears repeating. How do you stay safe from ticks while outside? How much do you worry about them? I'll start because I probably worry about them the most. Yeah, I worry about them a lot. And I'm actually, the timing on this was perfect because I got an email from Sawyer's team today. They're looking to do a little bit of digging into past surveys that we did, but highlighted the fact that the 2022 AT survey showed that 3% of the survey respondents, so 3% of the thru-hikers that we had respond to our survey actually got Lyme disease that year,
wow.
Which is pretty high. Like, I mean, if
that
you look at
significant.
it, yeah, for sure. Something at least you have to be concerned with. Yeah, so to answer the question directly, if you catch Lyme disease early on, it's very treatable. It's just hard because all of the symptoms of Lyme disease are also very similar to the things you just experience day in as day out as a thru-hiker. Mm-hmm. So if you're lucky enough to actually get the bullseye rash, then you can go to the doctor, get the antibiotic, and take care of it. But not everyone gets the bullseye rash, and that's where things can get very problematic. But yeah, how to actually stay safe is I'm maniacal about using permethrin on trail. Is any trip that I'm doing where I think that there's even a chance that there's going to be a deer tick out there, I treat all of my gear, all of my clothes, and you know, if I was going to do a longer backpacking trip, I would do this every 4 to 6 to 8 weeks, kind of just depending on the season. But yeah, any short trip that I do now, I definitely am going through at least a bottle or 2 of permethrin before I go out there. And there's also the factory applications. You can send in your stuff to a company like Insect Shield, and they'll do the factory application, and it's got a longer lifespan. I think it's like 6 times as long as something like that. So it could last for as long as half of a thru-hike of something like the AT. Yeah, and then the other thing that you should do, which has holes unless you've got like a partner that you feel very comfortable with, is check yourself every day. Right. For Chauncey, that might be easier because she's not riddled with hair. But for someone like me, like spotting something that's as small as a fleck of pepper on your body when you've got hair basically covering your entire existence, doing something like that is very hard. Mm-hmm. And then like checking your butthole at the end of the night, like unless you've got somebody who's willing to do the dirty work. And also just the fact is, like, after a 25-mile day, like contorting yourself into those yoga positions to actually do that is, most people are not going to do that. So
selfie mode on your phone is great for that.
Yeah. Right. But for that reason, I am definitely very diligent about doing the permethrin thing because I know that I'm not going to be perfect with checking myself just because it's impractical and difficult. So curious to get you guys take on that question.
Yeah, I noticed my first tick on the AT around mile 500. And so I re-permethrined my gear. And then I noticed, I think it was like 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks had passed, and I hadn't seen a single tick. Like, that's how well it worked, is I didn't see a single tick. And when I got to Devil's Backbone, I saw a tick, and it was inside my tent. I was getting in my tent at night to sleep, and there was a tick on the ceiling of my tent. And it's like, how the fuck did you get there? So panic ensued, and I re-permethrined. And, I mean, it was crazy how many ticks I would see at the end of the permethrin cycle versus me being like, oh, that was all in my head because now I haven't seen one for 3 weeks. And it's like, well, that's because you just re-permethrined your stuff. But it freaks me out, you know? Like, imagine I hadn't seen it on the roof of my tent and I went to sleep that night. You know, like, that's a bad day for Chance. But I think selfie mode on your cell phone, if you don't want to, like, carry a mirror and you don't trust a friend, take that when you go into your tent at night, put it on your, like, ground floor of your tent and have it point up, and then just crouch over it like you're about to poop on it. But just, like, look at it. You'll see if anything weird is there.
Oh, I want the story of somebody accidentally pooping on their phone.
Yeah, that would be bad. Well, I'm always worried that it's going to accidentally take a photo, and then I'm not going to know that it did that, and I'm going to show someone a photo on my phone, and they're going to be like, is that your whole, like, underside?
Yeah, the NSA is getting a real good show.
Yeah. But I was actually thinking about ticks last night because I was watching this new season of The Bachelor, and I promise this has a point. They went on a one-on-one date with a girl named, The Bachelor went on a one-on-one date with this girl named Daisy, I think was her name. And she was telling him about how, like, she's had a very different life from other people because when she was like 11 or 12, she started getting really sick. And anytime anyone in her family would get sick, she would get, like, sick even worse, like whatever it was times 10. And when she was 17, she started to lose her hearing, and she ended up having to go to this hospital in Germany because they found out that it was Lyme that she had. And so she went to this hospital in Germany and had to spend a month in treatment. And thankfully, like, all of her symptoms, like, are better now, but she fully lost her hearing, and now she uses a cochlear implant.
The cochlear implant.
Cochlear.
Yeah.
The one that we talked about on a past episode. And so she was telling him, like, how it attaches and disconnects, and I was thinking about the guest that we had on where I was touching his head, and I was just like, damn, like, you don't know you're gonna get it, and once you do, it could just infect so many things that to have that extra spray of permethrin, to take that extra zero in town to, like, spray your clothes when it starts to wear down or time passes, that can have a huge, it'll have a huge impact that hopefully you'll never notice, right? Like, it's that quote where it's like, if we do everything right, we'll never know.
Yep.
Whatever that was.
An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. But yeah. Yeah, no, Lyme disease can fuck up your life real bad, like the chronic issues that can come from that.
Arthritis. My buddy has arthritis real bad now.
Fatigue.
At a young age.
People get a sensation of, like, things crawling in their skin. Like, it can
that's great.
manifest. Yeah, it can manifest in a ton of different negative
Red
directions.
meat.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah.
Ticks are scary.
Yeah. I'm also very scared of ticks. To the point that I don't think I'd ever do the AT northbound just because of ticks. That'd be such a pain.
Yeah.
I can't imagine wearing clothes with that all over it when it's so hot and muggy. Doing that.
I still don't do the full pants.
Okay.
Like, even being as afraid as I am, I would rather not just, like, be chronically dehydrated, which would happen to me because I'm so hot. Fortunately, I think it's something like if a tick crawls across, it's an inch or a half inch of permethrin treated fabric of any kind, it dies.
Oh, wow.
It's very effective. You know, the risk is, like, if it lands on your skin and
like your legs too, it got all the hair to pick it up.
Yeah.
Like
so
brushing up against leaves and whatnot.
Right. That's why you got to be very mindful of, like, checking the places that are exposed.
Right.
And I'm kind of maniacal about that, but I worry less about, like, my nether regions because I'm wearing underwear that's treated with permethrin, shorts, and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to be perfect with it, but I think if you're very good, you're in a better place than just freeballing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Sawyer permethrin states that it's good for 6 weeks, and I forget how long. If you did like something like insect shield, it's longer than that. But yeah, do what you can, because Lyme disease sucks big ass.
Also, if you want to hear more about Lyme disease and ticks, episode 200 is literally all about that.
Yep. Cool. What do we got next? Next is, if you had to do a medium length trail this year, which one would it be? That's from Christine_Grill.
What do we define as medium length?
Good question. I just arbitrarily said anywhere in like the 1 to 500 mile range. You could pick whatever numbers you wanted, but that felt right to me. The three that I highlighted for different reasons. Number one is JMT, just because the High Sierra is so magical.
So pretty.
Yeah. I did a big section of the JMT, obviously going through the PCT. I've spent a lot of time in the High Sierra prior to that, but it's just one of those places that I want to keep going back to. It's so nice.
Right.
Have you done Tour de Mont Blanc?
I've not.
Okay.
We've done parts of it. The Alpine Pass route from Chamonix to Zermatt overlaps with it a lot.
Okay.
We did that, but never the whole TMB.
Yeah. That's been number one on my international bucket list for a long
Same.
time. And
Nice.
yeah, when I can swing that, I will. And then my last one, and this is largely just due to convenience, but it's always kind of piqued my curiosity as well, is the Collegiate Loop. I've done the West on the Colorado Trail. I've also done sections of it since. I've never actually done anything other than like day hikes on the east side. So I think it'd be fun to do east side first and then end with the sweet stuff on the west side. But yeah, I just like it for the convenience factor. And I think the Collegiate Loop is like 160 miles.
I think you're right. Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. What do you guys got?
My brain separates it into two categories, which is U.S. and not U.S. And then obviously also like time of year. But if we're going anywhere in the world, Tour de Mont Blanc is on there. West Highland Way, would love to do that one.
It'd be really fun.
Yeah.
What was the other one that I liked? I like the idea of the Camino. I think the like vibes would have to be right. Like I would want to do it in like a chill, not like super hardcore hiking way. Like that would be a good one to take Garrett on. I can't think of a third for the international ones just because I can't remember their names. But then if we're talking the U.S., like if we're saying, hey, answer this realistically, like what would you go do if you could go do something right now? Probably the two that I would be weighing between in this season would be the Benton Mackay Trail or the Pinhoti Trail. If we opened it up to like weather windows are open, it's full summer. Would love to do the Wonderland Trail in Washington. I think there's some great stuff along the coasts on the West Coast. Like you got some like the Oregon Coast Trail. I like the idea of the Northville Placid Trail. And then like there's so many options here, like the Superior Hiking Trail, you know, it just depends on what type of time of year. But if we were looking at right now, I can leave tomorrow, it would probably be the Benton Mackay or the Pinhoti.
Those are great.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of good ones there. I'd love to do the long trail again. I'd like to do it southbound in the fall. I'd love to go with Grace and our dog Amma. I just think doing a trail all together would be really fun.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to find trails that would be good for a dog. So for that reason of all hiking together, and I just think Vermont's beautiful, would be really fun.
Yeah.
To go back there. I'd also love to do the Sierra High Route sometime. I also think we could do, Grace and I could do a lot of that, but of course no dogs.
Yeah.
And then international, I'd love to do, I forget what it's called. It's in Lofoten. It's basically a point-to-point in Lofoten Islands up in northern Norway, which I think is the most beautiful spot I've ever been. I forget what it's called. I'll look into it, but that looks awesome. And I think it's like a 10-day trek. I know Swami's done it and has all the information on it. The Long Way maybe or something like that. I don't know. But it looks phenomenal. Yeah. I'd love to go back.
Is there like a website that just has like a catalog of all these things? Because what I do is like yesterday I was just scrolling far out and looking at the guides they have available, but they don't have everything.
Look at Swami's website.
Yeah?
Yeah. Swami, he's like Real old guy.
Yeah, no, I know he is.
Yeah. Hopefully he hears that.
That he's old.
Yeah. He's not that old.
No, I want like a Wikipedia page written by someone that isn't Wikipedia. You know, like I want like someone who thru hikes and like knows what thru hiking is.
Yeah.
To just list out like by country. Here are all the options and here's all the mileages.
That's almost exactly what his website is.
Perfect.
It's by continent and then by country in the continent and then all the trails there. It may not be every single trail you could do, but it's all the ones he's done, and he's basically done everything you can think of. You know, he's been thru hiking these things since the 90s. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to Eloise Robbins, who did a post, the best time of the year to hike these 23 popular long trails. This is just US, but it breaks down by month. Like, if let's say you've got free time in February, it gives you all the options per month.
What are my February options?
Good question. Let's go.
Granted, we have backpacker radio recordings to do.
Best trail by season winter is Florida Trail. Oh, this does have some international trails. Florida to Aurora. Spring is AT South, PCT South, CDT South, Arizona Trail, northbound, Bent McKay Trail, Grand Enchantment Trail, Hayduke, Lone Star Trail, Ozark Trail, Pinhoti Trail, Camino de Santiago. Summer is AT Middle. So this breaks down more for like section hiking and just like the ideal times to take on different sections of different trails.
Oh, you know what one I didn't say? What's the north? Oh, I took some photos of these the other day. But there's that Sea to Summit Trail or
in North Carolina?
Oh, the Mountains to Sea?
That one's a cool one. I took a photo of the Foothills Trail. Looks like a cool option. That's South Carolina and North Carolina.
Nice. I've heard to do that sometime.
That's on my short list for.
That's only 76 miles.
Yeah. No.
So that would be a good one.
I was eyeing that one based on a recent conversation.
Screenshot from yesterday.
Yeah.
So I literally went through far out and I was screenshotting ones that looked good.
And South Carolina's a cool state.
Weather's good. Cool.
Yeah.
Swami's website is The Hiking Life.
Okay.
Next one is from Mark_Tryon. As a future dad, I'd like tips on how to instill both an interest and respect for nature in young kids. I imagine this one is for me, and the answer is going to be disappointing because honestly, I'm still figuring this one out myself for a couple of reasons. One, my 3-year-old is still not a lover of the outdoors. I'm trying to figure out ways to get him more into it. And the two things that I'm learning is that you have to start off by stripping your own expectations on any hike that you go onto. Like for me, I like to do a certain amount of mileage when I go on a hike, and you just have to, getting on the trail is a victory in of itself. And even if you only get like 300 yards from the trailhead and he's exploring rocks and just like getting dirt on himself and all that stuff, that is a victory. And the other thing that I've learned that works is candy, incentives, like promising him just to get him to the trailhead. I'm like, when we get there, we'll have M&Ms, and that gets him in the car. So, yeah, I'm still finding ways, and they're still young, or he's still young. It's also been challenged with having the 2 babies at home. That's, full-time dad care on the weekends makes it harder to just disappear. But yeah, still figuring this one out myself. So if someone listening to this has good insight, please do let me know. podcast@thetrek.co.
I will say, as someone who was once young, I feel like I didn't do a lot of long distance hiking, or I didn't do a lot of backpacking until I did the PCT, and I've said that a couple of times on different episodes here and there. But it wasn't something where like, oh, we went on backpacking trips every summer. You know, it wasn't something where it was like my whole family camps. My mom will never sleep in a tent.
Yeah,
I just like can't picture that happening. But the way that I grew up was when we would have vacation in the summers, like we were lucky enough to have like a farmhouse in the middle of the woods in upstate New York, but somewhere like that where like even if you're just doing an Airbnb, we had no internet, we had no phones, we had a TV that only had a VCR. It had no like actual TV stuff, and like my grandma's collection of VHSs. So unless I wanted to watch like I don't know, Heidi or A Waltz Through the Hills, like it just wasn't, we weren't watching TV. And so there was nothing to do. There was literally nothing to do, and you had to go outside. And so as a kid, you're thinking, okay, well then give me something to do. And our only instruction that my dad ever gave us was go in the woods. If you get lost, go downhill until you find a river, and then follow the river until you find a road, and then tell someone you're lost, and they'll take you back here. They'll figure it out. And so it was just like, for me, even though as a family we didn't do that stuff, I had a ability to get comfortable being outside on my own terms. Like no one was hovering over me, no one was taking me and telling me to do it. It was more like a get the fuck out of the house thing. Like go outside, leave us alone, you know, like you're a kid, go play.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do, but like come back when the sun goes down.
Yeah.
And same thing like growing up, you know, like it's so easy to give kids tablets now. It's so easy to give them other stuff to do. Like we were literally pushed out the door. Go play outside, come back when the streetlights come on.
Yeah.
And obviously it depends on where you are and what you have access to. And there's, you know, it's not as easy said as done. But you can end up being in a position like where I am now, where I've done a couple of these big hikes, having never grown up with parents that hike, based purely on just being put in situations where the outdoors and being in the woods and things like that just weren't scary because I had time to get familiar with them.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because I grew up in the country. Like I grew up on 3 acres of property, so I spent a ton of time outside, just like tire swings, playing with bugs and all that stuff. But my parents actually made an effort to take us hiking. Like they actually liked hiking, not backpacking or any overnight of any kind. But I remember every time that they took us hiking, I hated it. I loathed it. Like I found it to be so boring, and like they had to incentivize me with candy. Like it was the tables were definitely turned in that scenario. I just fell onto it as an adult, like just as a counter-cultural way to get from the addiction to screens. I found nature to be so pleasant and healing. So it just took me a while to discover it for myself, but I would love for my kids to discover it at an earlier age than I did. But yeah, I liked being outside. I just did not like hiking.
Maybe patience as a parent, right? I think of myself as well as a kid, probably not being that into it, but my parents were pretty persistent of getting us outside and doing little adventures. And I think a lot of the stuff I did as a little kid, I might not have appreciated in the moment and probably complained about it and stuff. But later in life was like, oh, I remember being out at Great Sand Dunes National Park and like hiking up North Dune. And like, I want to go back now as an adult. That was so cool, even if at the time I didn't think it was cool at all.
Yeah.
I was also going to say, if you have the means to, and you can send them to a summer camp, I think as much as it probably sucks for parents to hear, I don't know, I'm not one, but like your kid might be more receptive to someone else encouraging them to do it, like someone their age that's excited about it. And I've worked at summer camps where it cost $300 for a kid to go for a week, and I've worked at ones where it costs, you know, $2,000 plus for a kid to go for a week. So you get a full range of like what summer camp means. But I think having them be around people in their age group where they're all trying something together outdoors makes it more exciting than, you know, maybe it is if it's just you coming at them if you're not seeing success on that.
Yeah, so it certainly seems like no one size fits all approach, because my sister went to a summer camp in Colorado when she was a kid, and she hated it so much she had my parents pick her up early.
I love that. Episode 152 with Nancy East. She talks about getting her kids outside and tips that she does, and that's a really useful episode.
What is your daily routine for foot care to prevent blisters while doing big miles? This is from 72 Chicken Wing.
Leukotape. Leukotape. I will not do a long trail without it. It is... Do
you use it as prevention or...
Yes, I use it as prevention, and I use it as a fix. I use it for... It's like I am my big fat Greek wedding, and it is my Windex. If I start to have like a spot that I feel is rubbing, I'll put a piece of Leukotape over it. And what I like about Leukotape most is it sticks. KT tape, I find when you put the sock back up or anything rubs against it, it'll start to rub it off. Leukotape will stay. And
even after like a shower.
Until you take it off. And so preventatively, I'll put a piece on a spot when it starts to feel like a rub or it starts to get hot. I'll even double it up if I feel like I need that extra, like one piece isn't doing enough. And if I've already got a pretty gnarly blister, there's debate on when you should drain it, if you should drain it. What I'll typically do is I won't peel the skin off, as much as I love doing that. But I'll take my fingers and I'll crack a little hole in it and I'll let it drain. And once it's drained, I'll put Leukotape over it. And my policy, and again, people will debate this, but my policy is I leave it on until it falls off. Mm-hmm. And again, it'll last through a shower even, but it's not bothering me. And I'll leave it on until it falls off. And by the time it falls off, what's underneath is usually better. I've tried a lot of stuff and nothing helps like that.
Yeah. Leukotape is awesome. And anything you can do to remove friction on an area that's developing into a hot spot is going to be a game changer. You have anything?
No, I'm very fortunate. I don't get blisters, so I don't have much to add.
Yeah. European feet. Damn.
I know. Yeah. I maybe did like at the very beginning of the PCT, but since then I've never had blisters.
Do you think it's because you do so much stuff that your feet are just like constantly calloused?
I think consistency helps for sure. And finding shoes that fit well probably helps as well.
That's definitely the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Finding the right footwear.
Yeah.
Footwear and socks, that combo. And I guess maybe just keeping your feet mostly clean. I know that's impossible to keep them clean on a long trail, but you know, even just like putting them in cold water at the end of the day or something helps and feels good, and you know, get the dirt out of your socks because that surely can cause rubbing.
Yeah,
that is my biggest thing, hands down. Is like I dealt with blisters pretty much the entire AT, and it was always like a battle of like, you know, trying to cater my miles to make sure that my feet aren't going to erupt. But on the PCT and hikes since, and I've done much bigger miles on a daily average, is basically anytime I'm taking a break for longer than 5 minutes, ideally at a water source, but even if not, I'm taking my shoes and my socks off and just letting my feet cool off. Like that's the biggest thing. And yeah, if you can get them in cold water, definitely do that. Like even when I was doing as many miles as I possibly could on the PCT, anytime I would take a break, the shoes were coming off, and again, always try to time it at a water source, and like, yeah, you can just see your feet constrict and the veins pop out, and like it's just so refreshing feeling. And then once you go back into your shoes, you feel like a brand new person. Like it's a great reset button.
And if you're trying different things and nothing's helping, try different shoes. Like
Right.
I've never had worse blisters than I have had in Hokas, and I know other people who love Hokas. And for me, it kind of was just like, okay, I guess they're not going to be the shoe for me. But I never saw those kinds of issues in ultras. And for me, it's like, okay, well then it was the shoe that was what caused it that time. And I think the last thing I'll say to it is also, don't wait to check on them, right? Like it's so easy to be going up a hill and you've got like 0.8 to the top of this climb and you start to feel it and it's like, oh, I need to like stop and like let it air out for a second, or I need to stop and put a piece of tape on it. It's so easy to be like, I'll just do it when I get to the top. I'm going to take a break there anyway. But I feel like that time period between I start to notice something and blister actually being there is that 0.8 that you're saying I could just make it there and then take care of it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Treat it as a marathon, not a sprint. Like it's always best to deal with it the second that you notice something's askew. Next question is from Jeannie Greeny, and the question is, can you tell us about your most emotionally draining experience? I presume this is an on-trail thing. I'm sure we could pull out our therapist couch and give a lot of good stories of off-trail experiences. I'll start just quickly with this one. I've mentioned it a lot, so I'll go through it quickly. But the mountain lion encounter that I had on the PCT was definitely the most emotionally draining. And I don't mean that like in the acute sense of like, yeah, seeing a mountain lion and it running in your direction is an emotionally charged experience. But like I had so much adrenaline after that, and we had another 2 miles to go to camp, that when we set up camp, within maybe 3 minutes of setting up my tent, I was asleep. And like that never happened. It takes me an hour on average to fall asleep, and like the adrenaline wearing off and getting to camp is just like such a release that I slept through the night immediately after getting in my tent. And that wasn't like a particularly big mile day. Like that was definitely the result of the massive adrenaline surge that I had at that particular moment. But I'll give a new example too, just because I've told that story before. And that's basically every time I've gotten off trail in a thru hike context without a GPS, there have been a couple instances, and like in hindsight, they were really small things. It was just like I took a trail that wasn't the AT or the PCT, and I just like kind of coasted off. I was in a different mindset, and like once I realized I was off trail, realistically I wasn't in any real danger because I knew I could just turn around, and it was like a well-marked trail that I just had to turn around and get back to the intersection of the PCT or the AT. But like I'm such an anxious person that my mind goes immediately to like, I'm lost. This is the place where I'm going to be off trail and no one's ever going to find me. And like, I definitely go to the worst case scenario. And that's happened to me a few times. And like, I get a big sense of relief once I actually get back on trail. But yeah, it's happened to me enough times where I've gotten off trail and like, I have a minor panic.
Mm-hmm.
I've got two. I guess it depends on what kind of emotional drainage you're looking for, because I've got all kinds. The first one is like, I don't think a great story because it's just not that exciting, but it falls in line with like, even if your body physically can do something, mentally like is a completely different ball game. And when I had finished the Appalachian Trail, I had about 90-ish miles to clean up at the end of the Colorado Trail because I had been section hiking that. So I was like, easy peasy, 90 miles is nothing. And I just got out of the whites. I just did all this stuff. I'm in peak condition. I'm going to go back there, just bang it out quick, and then I will like resume life. And I made it. Where did I even start? How did I get there? I don't know how the logistics worked. I took my car somewhere, I dropped it off, I got to where I needed to go, and I started hiking. And that was the longest 24 hours of my life on trail because I was so just like emotionally drained from the high of finishing the AT, saying goodbye to all the trail friends, getting back to Colorado, like decompressing slightly, seeing like what jeans looked like on for the first time in months, taking them back off, putting back on my hiking stuff, getting back out to the middle of the nowhere. Now I'm by myself. I haven't really like decompressed too much, and I'm hiking, and it was like someone stretched out how long a mile was. A mile was so freaking long, and by the time night hit, like I probably hadn't stopped crying once that whole day. I had gotten myself sick just from I think you can make yourself have a cold from just like mindset alone. I was sneezing, I was coughing up phlegm. Like I just was not in a great state. I was awake all night because I didn't feel good, and I was afraid because I was camping by myself, and I just like, no part of me wanted to be out there. And in my mind it was like, you just did the fucking AT and you can't go 10 miles on the Colorado Trail without like having like a fit and crying. Like, what is wrong with you? And the next day I literally just got right off trail. I like got straight off trail. I was like, I'm done. I don't know when I'm going to do these next 75 miles. It's not going to be now. And I ended up doing those 75 miles, I think in 2022 or a year or two ago. I did them with Fireball when she was at the end of her Colorado Trail hike. Same thing with like the JMT PCT. I was like, I will enjoy this more if I wait and I go back at a time I actually want to do it. And it was great. But that time it was just like the compounding of emotions and like just everything that goes into finishing a hike to just immediately jump back into something just because I knew my body could do those miles fast, like killed me. So that one was a big one. And then the other one was finishing the AT. We were at White House Landing, and we had seen that bad weather was set to come in like the day after the next, which was when we were supposed to be summiting, had we gone at a normal pace. And flights were booked, things like we had to finish at a certain time. And the way the weather was predicted, it was like a Thursday. And once the rain started, it wasn't meant to let up too much until Sunday or Monday. And so we were worried about them closing the summit, which they did on Thursday. And so our strategy was, let's leave now and let's hike through the night and let's summit tomorrow morning and let's just not stop. So we ended up doing 52 miles in about 30 hours, and we didn't sleep. We slept, there's like that store at Able Bridge. We slept in front of their front door so that if we overslept, we would wake up to them being like, what the hell are you doing? We got like 2 hours of sleep. I get vertigo. I'm afraid of heights. I'm 5'1", so going up Katahdin itself, I was just crying from the fact of like, I'm physically exhausted. I haven't slept. This is really high and scary. I can't reach that rebar. Like, I can't reach it. Someone needs to boost me. And then just like seeing the clouds coming in all at the same time, and like what felt like no room for just taking a fucking break. By the end of that, I was just like, I can't even think straight because I am so tired. And I felt like out of two bad options, this was the better one. And I just like, I can't win in this, you know? Mm-hmm. And so that one just absolutely was emotionally draining.
Yeah, I think that brings up a really good point of it's really important to be hungry for a hike to be able to enjoy it. Like if you're just doing it because like you feel like you have to, the miles go very slow. Like you question why you're even doing a thing. Like that is an important prerequisite that this is something that like you genuinely want to do. If social media didn't exist or whatever it might be, like you have to be hungry for it for there to be some level of enjoyment.
Yeah.
I've gotten that question a lot because I've done the 3 long trails, but I haven't actually finished the AT or CDT, so I'm not like a triple crowner. And the section I'm missing on the CDT is the west end of Yellowstone to the south end of the Bob. So basically like the borderland of Montana, Idaho, which oftentimes, I haven't done it, so I don't know, but it oftentimes gets poo-pooed as being the worst part of the entire trail. And I just don't have much desire to go finish.
Yeah.
Right? Like if
there's so much to do out there.
Literally the only reason I'd be doing it is to like get a triple crown, and it's like, well, that's not enough for me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
There are other things I'd rather do in my time.
Good. It's important to know your motivations.
Yeah, because I'm sure I'd get out there and probably have similar emotions and feelings and be like, I'm just not into this. Yeah. You know, this isn't what I'm excited about right now. So,
do you have any good examples of emotionally draining on-trail experiences? You don't have to force it if not.
Yeah. I think when I was with Andy and the Beartooths, we were hiking, kind of putting together a high route, and we were climbing the High Point Granite Peak, which any state high point in Montana. Anytime there's a state high point, there's just more people try and go because, you know,
it's a bucket list thing.
It's a bucket list thing, sure. And maybe people who shouldn't be out there. And we walked upon an accident of a kid who had fallen and really smashed his face really bad. And there were other people there before us, and there was one person who was medical, and he was in a group of Yale students. It was like their graduation hike thing they were doing, and his buddies were up top, and they were kind of showering rocks down and stuff, and you could tell it was very dire, like needed to get, you know, airlifted out of there immediately. And it was maybe like 400 feet from where he was laying in the top of the summit, and they had somebody relaying messages to the SAR, like, and a helicopter was coming in, and what they did, since Andy and I were there, they're like, oh, y'all are strong, we're going to send y'all back and forth and relay messages. So we spent like, I don't remember how long, it didn't feel like much time, but maybe it was like 2 hours going back and forth and relaying messages from like the guy who had a medical background who was with the kid, and then the kid's buddies up at the top who had a radio and were communicating with SAR, and that was kind of emotional afterwards. And I remember the whole rest of the day just being kind of on edge, like, you know, moving on big boulders that move and being like, geez, everything's so scary right now.
Yeah, of course.
And pretty emotionally draining. It ended up that the kid passed.
Wow.
Like a month or two later.
Yeah.
Just because of brain swelling, they couldn't get down. But yeah, that was, emotionally draining.
Yeah, that's tough for sure.
Yeah. And seeing, just anything with traumatic experience like that is just tough.
Definitely. Okay, I'm gonna actually save some of these questions for a future Q&A episode because we're getting long as is, but there's definitely some here given our guest that I want to hit on. This one is not guest specific, but I think it's a quick, fun question. What brand of instant coffee will help you poop the best? Asking for a friend. That's from Dave B from SB. I just quickly did some research. I assumed that the coffee with the most caffeine will probably induce that response, and there's shout out to this instant coffee brand. It's called Death Wish Coffee Co. Dark Roast Instant Coffee, and one serving of it has 300 milligrams of caffeine
Oh
per
my goodness.
serving. To put that in perspective, like the typical cup of coffee is about 90 milligrams of coffee, so it's a little bit more than 3 cups of coffee worth. So yeah, if you're backed up, that should do the trick. It might also give you a heart attack, so if you're not acclimated to high caffeine, that should do the job. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that? Okay. Skipping that one. How does someone get into canyoneering? Where do you begin? That's from John Ryman.
That's a good question. I don't think it's one size fits all. Could be very different based on where you're coming from and where you're at. I would highly recommend taking a class to at least learn rope work. I know here in Colorado, I took a beginning mountaineering course at the Colorado Mountain Club, which is super affordable. I think it was like a 4-month-long course, met twice a week, and it cost 300 some bucks.
Wow.
Like super affordable. So that's a great option. I believe they have a canyoneering course that they offer every year. You could also have a mentor. That's how I got into it. I did the class maybe back in 2015. I didn't get into canyoneering until 2019. But having mentors who have done it before and can kind of, for lack of a better term, show you the ropes,
Nice.
is always very helpful. That's a great way to do it. And I think just having familiarity, maybe go with a personal guide. There's Golden Mountain Guides is here in town, shares a building with the CDTC and CMC. I'm sure there's all sorts of climbing guides that could help you. The biggest thing is knowing rope work,
Yep.
right? You don't have to be in an area that's heavily canyoneered to be able to learn canyoneering and the basics to get into canyons and be safe.
Yeah.
But surely do a lot of research before you ever get into canyons on your own. But at least for me, I was with mentors a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Mentors, just buddies who I knew who had experience and
Sure.
I could go out with. One of them was Aaron Martre, the owner of Catabatic. He's a amazing canyoneer. I think he's the second person to ever do the Hayduke as well.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Should get on the show.
Or he was one of the first few. Maybe
Yeah.
not second, but might have been first, might have been second, might have been third.
Yeah.
But he's a big canyoneer as well, and he taught me a lot.
Sweet.
So yeah.
Love that. And we'll end with this one. Obviously, you're the foremost expert on this question. What is the best 311 song? Maybe this is song and album, song or album. I'll let you answer that as you see best fit. That's from Brandon Tomlinson.
I love it. Thank you, Brendan. Shout out. Yeah, best album is Grassroots for sure. Their old stuff is where it's at. Their
That's
early
not the one
90s.
with the fire on the cover.
One before maybe or
Okay.
something like that. I don't know. Or maybe several before that, actually. I think you're thinking From Chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, Grassroots is like maybe 1993 or something like that.
Okay.
That album's great. And the songs on it are all good.
Very close, 94.
94?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So when I was a kid.
Yeah. And best song?
Tide on that album
Okay.
is great.
Nice.
They're all good, though.
Yeah.
They're all good.
Sweet. Let's put a bow on it there. I think that was good. We're almost at 2 hours. Thank you guys to everyone who submitted a question. If you guys like this format, happy to do it again. I think this is fun to kind of just shake things up. And yeah, Twinkle, thanks to you for joining us and all your expertise. You're not going anywhere. We've got some segments, but before we do that, to the Trek propaganda portion of today's show, I want to do another edition of the AT thru-hiker survey. This is the top sleeping bags, quilts, and pads on the AT from 2023, courtesy of Kate Richard. And I'm giving a shout out to Kate's mom. And that's not weird. She told me that her mom listens to the podcast. So hi, Kate's mom. As always, I'm going to direct you guys to the article itself because there's tons of juicy nuggets in it, but I'll give you the quick highlights here. Once again, quilts were the majority on the AT, up to 56% in 2023, up from 51% last year. The highest percentage of tenters who use the quilts too has steadily grown since 2019. It's up to 60% now. So people that use tents, 60% of them are in quilts.
Wow.
For a while, those numbers were fudged because there's a lot of people that use hammocks on the AT, and obviously hammockers typically use quilts. Quilts had a higher satisfaction rating compared to sleeping bag users as well, though it was pretty close. 12% of sleeping bag users reported some level of dissatisfaction, where it was half that, 6% for quilt users. 20 to 29 degrees, that range was the most common temperature rating for quilts and sleeping bags. And its specific models, once again, Enlightened Equipment Revelation was the top dog. They were the top overall model and the top brand. Number 2 was the Enlightened Equipment Enigma. And number 3 was, I think, a newcomer to the list, is the Hammock Gear Burrow. Not familiar with that one. We also did pads, and zero surprise here, the Thermarest Neo Air X-Lite was the most popular model, and it was nearly 3 times as popular as number 2, which was the Nemo Tensor. So, yeah, if you want to learn more about sleeping bags, quilts, and pads on the AT, that is an excellent article. Okay, let's go to today's question of the day. Have we done this one before? It feels a little familiar.
It does, but I wasn't sure if I was confusing it with like the what's in your junk drawer or any of those.
Okay, we'll pretend like we haven't done it.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, do you want to introduce it?
Sure. This one is, if you're a burglar, but you can only steal things that mildly inconvenience your victims. What are you taking? The example given is the plate that goes in the microwave.
Yeah.
I think that's a genius one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm going to go with batteries.
Yeah.
I'm taking all the batteries from your house because you won't notice right away, but when you do, it's going to be a thing because you're going to go to use your remote and the batteries aren't going to be in it, and you're going to be like, who the hell stole my batteries? You're going to go to a different remote to take the batteries to then put in your remote, and they're not going to be there. You're going to go find like a video game remote, nothing. You're going to go to your battery drawer, nothing. Think about anything else you might have batteries in, like around the house,
Kids'
scattered.
toys.
Yeah, nothing, right? Like you're just going to come up blank, and you're going to then just slowly get more full of rage, wondering who the hell took all of the batteries. And it feels small scale enough to fit this.
Yeah, that's a good one for sure. I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of the example given, and this is coming from personal experience, sort of, but taking the shelves out of a fridge.
Ooh.
We had one of the door shelves break recently, and trying to replace the part is impossible because like the model number on the fridge is like something so cryptic that you're having to like look at 12 different things, and there's variations that are very close to it, and like it's all on Amazon from like untrusted things. So like we've purchased and then returned 3 different shelves that haven't fit on the fridge, and like the amount of ketchup bottles and like juice bottles and all that stuff that it holds is significant. So like we're just cramming more shit into the fridge, and with a large family it starts to add up quickly. Imagine now removing all the shelves and you just have like the base floor thing. That would be panic territory for us. Like we cook pretty much exclusively now. It'd be bad news.
That would be awful.
Yeah. You got anything? I know we put you on the spot here.
Yeah, I'd probably steal socks.
There you go.
That's good.
Maybe hiking related, but can you imagine wearing shoes without socks? That's awful.
Yeah, you'd have to
I hate that
improvise,
feeling.
like wrap a towel or like paper towel or tissues or something. You'd have to do something, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go bare balls in shoes sometimes when I'm just feeling like lazy walking out to the car, and it feels so wrong.
It does feel so
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
I had to go to the post office quick the other day, and I just put my sneakers on and ran out the door, and it felt dirty.
Yeah.
My brother also always used to wear shoes without socks too, and his shoes smelled so fucking bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like people
Like,
who wear
so
loafers
bad.
without socks is like, I couldn't do that. I would ruin everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An honorable mention, you could also take like all of the kitchen lubes, like the butter, the oil.
Lubes.
Yeah, like have you ever gone to
Hang
cook
'em.
something and you realize you have no olive oil, and then you open the fridge and there's no butter as
Yeah.
like a backup, and then you realize I need to wet this pan with water and then cook like a chicken in it or something.
Yeah. You just have to like poach a bunch of eggs.
Yeah, that would be very inconvenient, especially because at the time you realize that you don't have it is probably once all the stuff is prepped and you're getting ready to actually cook it. That would suck.
Yeah. I know Amazon is probably evil, but I love Amazon for that reason. Like once we get very low on something, you order it in a second, and like, yeah, we're almost never out of anything anymore because I'm very diligent about that.
Yeah. I can imagine with a family to
Yeah.
feed. That's very important.
Yeah, toilet paper, everything is just, we're constantly going through it. I also think like emptying the soap dispenser in the bathroom, like after you take a big sloppy one, then you go to wash your hands and there's nothing there, and then like you're doing the thing where like you're holding your hands like it's like a hazmat hazard through the house because you got nasty stuff on it. That'd be pretty inconvenient.
Y'all
And-
don't use bidets?
Zach bare wipes.
Yeah.
Just bare hand wipes.
Yeah.
You need to get a bidet at home.
Yeah.
We have one. Garrett loves it.
Life changing.
We
You guys have a bidet?
I have
Oh,
to
yeah.
find you this video. Garrett has one, and it kind of freaks me out. And one night I was drunk enough where I was like, I will see what it feels like. But I didn't want to use the buttons. I was just like mentally preparing to do it, and he turned it on, and I freaked out. I was also drunk, but I
Right.
freaked out.
Yeah.
Such a different feeling.
Do you have one that warms the water?
No,
Yeah.
no. We just have a cheap one, but it's unreal. Maybe if you're a guy too, a little better. Like I don't know how much Grace uses it, but
Yeah.
for a guy,
It makes so much sense. Like, it is cleaner and it's less wasteful.
and it's like one whip every time.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I should look into that. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's do the Triple Crown. I'm excited for this one. Is this your submission?
Yeah.
This is the Triple Crown of foods that are way better or worse when homemade. So it could go in either direction.
I've got my first one, and it's, I think, contentious.
Yeah.
Homemade mac and cheese.
Is better or worse?
I don't like it.
You mean
like-
like out of the box or?
No, I mean like grandma made mac and cheese using pasta noodles, and whatever recipe like is how you make a strong homemade mac and cheese.
Yeah.
It doesn't do it for me. It's like drinking coffee without sugar. Like it just, there's something missing.
You like the fakeness of the boxed
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, this will be an unpopular take, but I'm actually not a big mac and cheese guy just in general. Like not
That
at a
is
restaurant, not at home.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's like slop food to me.
Ew.
Wow. I think we said this on the Valentine's episode, but that was our first date, Grace and I.
Mac
We
and
both
cheese.
love mac and cheese, so
Yeah.
I took her to my favorite place, then we went to hers, and then we went to a third to see what was actually the best. And that was the first date we ever went on.
Doesn't Trailhead Tap House have some pretty good mac and cheese?
They do.
Yeah.
Cajun style.
Yeah. I need to give that place
It's-
another shot.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. You want to go next?
Sure. I think burgers are much better at home, like on a grill.
Yeah.
Like burgers on the grill at home, there's something that is just way better than getting a burger at a store or at a restaurant. you
Yeah.
know.
Freshly charred.
Freshly charred, making it yourself on the grill.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like,
It's fun.
it releases endorphins,
For sure.
surely.
Yeah. I think I mentioned this on a recent podcast. This might have been a Patreon episode, actually, is we got one of the smash setups. So we've got the griddle and like the smash, I don't even know what you call it, the thing, like a large flat surface. And I will never go back. And honestly, I think the burger that I make will rival any restaurant's.
Nice.
And I'm a big
Yep.
fan of like eating out and getting a good burger. I still appreciate a good burger
Totally.
out. But yeah, I agree with you. Cooking it at home there's just something very satisfying about that.
Right. You can make it just how you like to.
Yeah, for sure. I'm gonna go with. I'm gonna start off with. I think the dish that I make the best. I have yet to have a version of it at a restaurant that I prefer, and that's chili. Chili can go in so many different directions. Like, you get the way that your family makes it, the way that your culture did it. Like, there's a lot of like Texas chili. I think there's no beans in it. Like, it's just mostly meat based. There's a lot of different directions, but yeah, I have a chili recipe that I won't go through it because it's a long process, but everyone that has been exposed to it always raves about how good it is. I have to give a shout out to my buddy Dave. He actually won the chili cooking competition in Woodstock, Illinois, and he's given me a couple of pointers on how he
Nice.
cooks his chili that I've absorbed into my routine. So a lot of this is borrowed inspiration, but yeah, I have never had anything at a restaurant that I think even comes close. And snake draft, I get two. I'm going to go with
You just did burgers and chili.
burgers was his. I was just...
Was it not yours?
No.
Yeah. that's
Who
fine.
am I? I'm sorry. That was
Zach definitely
aggressive
agreed,
on my
though.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I'm going to go with pho. Asian food in general is really hard. At least I struggle with it of all varieties, but the amount of work that goes into like making authentic pho is several hours and a lot of ingredients, and you have to get it's like beef knuckle bones to make the base. Like, there's a lot of like weird things that are hard to find at the normal grocery store. like I would rather just go to a Vietnamese restaurant and get theirs, because it's always like there's so many good pho places in the Denver area, and Denver's not even known for its food scene, and nothing that I could create would come close. Granted, I haven't tried just because I know how difficult it is, but yeah, I appreciate how easy it is just to go out and get a $15 bottle of pho.
I made it once.
Was it good?
Not with like the beef knuckles. That's just like a weird sounding thing to say, but with like whatever Pinterest recipe was like really good pho, easy, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not worth the time.
Yeah.
It didn't taste that good at the end.
I fucked up a lot of Asian dishes, and there'll be a couple on here on my list upcoming.
That's so funny you say that, because that was going to be one of mine. And I love pho at a restaurant. Have you been to Canyon Point Pho?
Yeah,
down the
it's
road?
good.
It is good. It's really good. But they had a sign that they were going to be open for like 3
5
years.
Yeah.
And I love pho, and I was so excited. Like every winter, I was like, it's got to open this winter. And I was out with my buddy skiing the Wind River High Route this spring, and I came down with COVID, like in the winds.
Yeah.
And I'm driving home, and I can't taste anything, and I'm sick. And that's when I passed, and they were open. I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Sons of bitches.
They opened on the day I can't taste
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and I would want this so bad right now.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I think it's a little overpriced for what it is, but
Surely.
yeah.
That's golden for you, though.
Right.
Denver scene, yeah.
but I do think they make a pretty good pho.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're up next.
I feel like breakfast in general.
I like that.
You think better or worse at home?
Better at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I prefer it at home. Grace makes great breakfast, like
What's her
eggs and
go-to?
waffles,
Okay.
and yeah, I just feel like it's always better at home because you feel a little more homey, and I'd rather be eating breakfast comfort food
Sure.
from home where I'm comfortable rather than like in a busy restaurant and waiting for it. And
the golden breakfast scene is lacking, I think.
oh, severely.
Yeah.
I don't. There's not a breakfast place in Golden I prefer.
Have you been to? It's in Arvada, a little bit closer to where I live. Home Cookin' Cafe.
I have not.
It's in a little strip mall. You would drive past it a million times and never even notice it, but it's our favorite breakfast place. It's cheap. But
Okay.
yeah, check it out. It's good.
Nice.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I think breakfast is a good one. I do like to eat out breakfast because it's the cheapest meal. So if you're gonna eat out for a meal, I like that the entrees are like $9 to $10. But yeah, I agree.
Yep.
I don't know which direction to go because I could go worse at home or I could go better at home.
You were gonna go breakfast worse at home. I saw that.
Well,
reaction.
I was thinking about the bacon at Bacon Social House and how they can like season and flavor them. Like if you get the bacon sampler, whatever it is, it's the bacon flight. And they give you like a blueberry bacon, like a honey bacon, like like they do all the different kinds, like a bourbon one. There's no way at home I'm making 6 different kinds of bacon for myself, and it's all gonna be hot when I'm ready to eat it.
When we had the podcast team in town, we went there for breakfast, and what Chance is describing is like a starter.
Yeah.
Chance got that for her meal, the bacon
Yeah.
flight for her meal.
Just give me a plate of meat and
Nice.
leave me to it. Brussels sprouts. I've tried to make them at home because I've recently have started to like Brussels sprouts in the context of when served them at a restaurant, they don't suck.
This is a good one.
And
I agree with you on
At
this.
home, it is really hard to make a good Brussels sprout. They just don't have the right consistency, and you can look up as many pointers as you want, but it's just a sad Brussels sprout. And unless you really want to work at it to get it right, which I don't, defeat is the only answer.
Do you want to know what the secret is?
I've probably tried it. What is it?
They fry it like in a lot of oil. The reason why it's like crispy at different layers is like they submerge it into
I haven't
oil.
tried that yet. Huh.
Yeah, it's not the healthy way to make Brussels sprouts.
You
but
could
it is
probably
the
air
tasty
fry
way.
them.
Yeah, I mean, yes, you can, and it'll give you a decent Brussels sprout, but nothing like you get at a restaurant.
Yeah, it's just not the same.
It's not.
Another thing that falls into that same category of not the same, no matter how hard you try, is scallops. I will splurge the little extra dollars to get scallops at a restaurant if there's a good scallop option, because I know, okay, this is more expensive and it's going to be a pricey meal, but I can't replicate this at home. If it's a pricey steak, I can be like, we have a sous vide, I can easily make a steak at home. Do I need to spend extra for a steak? And I can usually justify that with other things. If it's scallops, I know, like, this is my little scallop treat. Like, I make them at home and I try to, but you have to have them on for just the right amount of time or they get this, like, rubbery kind of texture, and it's just not I'd almost rather not have them than ruin it.
Huh.
So I got a couple tips for you. One is to salt them for maybe like 10 to 20 minutes before you're ready to cook them. That draws out the moisture. Then take a paper towel and dry them off. The key is you want them like very dry when you cook them. Put it on a cast iron pan. You're not supposed to let butter get too hot because it oxidizes, but I use butter anyways. Let it get very hot and then sear it on both sides for about 4 minutes. I made it at home and it's been like restaurant quality.
See, that sounds like exactly what I did though.
Okay.
Because that's what the internet said. Yeah, I remember seeing them all sitting on paper towels, and then I would flip them after a bit, and then like I gave them their paper towel bath. But
yeah, maybe it's just a scallop specific thing. Then.
Yeah,
we get them at Costco.
I mean, I'm not a chef, so that also like goes into play with this.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, but the quality of the meat can make or break the dish as well.
Yeah.
You get one more?
All right. This is a strange one, and I'm all about the feels. You don't make cereal at home, but I eat cereal at home all the time. I'm excited about it. It's in my own bowl, my own milk.
Yeah.
But if I am at a hotel or whatever, I'm never eating cereal in those weird cages or twist open, and you get the little styrofoam bowl.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Never the
that's
cereal
like
that you
the
want
least
either.
appealing thing.
Yeah.
Well, there's also like a personal experience to it too that you can't really do in public, which for me is like I don't like them getting so wet that they become soggy.
Okay.
So I'd rather just start out with like a low dosage of cereal in the bowl, and then as I eat it, add more dry cereal.
Right.
And like it's a continuous topping up thing that you can really only do at home, because in the wild it's like very strange for other people to watch you do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you have to be in your sweatpants, like leaning back on the couch, consuming some junk TV or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the ideal way to consume cereal.
Yep.
Okay. I've got some honorable mentions here for sure. I mentioned Asian food. The worst meal I've ever made, and it's not close, I probably have mentioned on the podcast, was I love drunken noodles. It's probably my favorite Thai dish. Jenna's usually very nice. Like, if I make a bad meal, she'll pretend like it's good, but she's just full. She won't eat it. Like, she'll at least humor me. The drunken noodles I made were so inedible. She's like, honey, you're a good cook, but this is dog shit. This is so bad. Like, the noodles clumped together. The flavor didn't resemble drunken noodles in the slightest. Like, it was burnt, but still undercooked in places. Like, they should make a documentary of this meal. It was so bad. It was so bad.
Wow.
It was a real train wreck.
I can give you a tip this time.
Yeah, please.
When I studied abroad in Thailand, we did a Thai cooking class, and part of the class was like you get to take home a cookbook of like the recipes and a few bonus ones. So I still have this like Thai cookbook of recipes, and when I've tried things from it, it works pretty well.
It turns out well? Okay.
So I'll find you the drunken noodle recipe in there.
Please send that to me. I need redemption.
It's straight from Thailand.
Yeah.
So there's no like Pinterest intermediary, like people fucking it up in the middle.
Good. I like that. And that was it, right? That's 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Honorable mentions.
Can't not say pizza, right? Like,
right.
It's fun to make pizza at home because like everyone can collaborate and add their own toppings and stuff, but like we're not replicating blue pan pizza, not in a million years.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's something that hits different about a freezer pizza. I would put freezer pizza in a different category because that's not homemade.
I agree. It is an entirely different category for sure. So there are times where I crave frozen pizza for sure. Yeah.
Another one for me, chicken noodle soup. You can get it at a restaurant and it might actually be better, but you're probably not getting it in the context that you'd have it at home. For example, when I have chicken noodle soup at home, I am definitely sick. And if I'm as sick as I want to be to enjoy it as much as I could, I'm not going to be in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So that goes back to the vibes.
And I just like knowing that the homemade chicken noodle soup, at least in our house, is made with bone broth. Every time we get a rotisserie chicken, I make chicken stock with it. And like there's a lot of health benefits to bone broth. And we've always just got like tubs of very gelatinous bone broth sitting in the freezer. So yeah, anytime that someone's sick, I make chicken noodle soup, and it's very good.
I'll have to get your bone broth recipe.
Yeah.
I'd say chicken parm. Has anybody ever tried to make that?
It's
so difficult to actually get right.
I was going to say I've tried eggplant parm, and that is closet really hard.
Yeah.
Jenna's good at the breaded dishes. She does both of those very well. I suck at them myself. But yeah. We did it's called Every Plate. It's like the budget version of like Green Chef or like Blue Apron or something like that, and they have a lot of the breaded things. And every time she makes it, it turns out great. Every time I make it, it's like, yeah, it's trash. So
it's tough to do. Grace and I've tried, and it's way
tough.
better at a restaurant.
Yeah.
She's Italian, so I think it's just built into her DNA. She knows how to do those things.
Honorable mention, hot chocolate. If you get a hot chocolate out, it tastes different depending on where you're going. Like, everyone has a different kind of chocolate they use, and some of them want to make it really good. Some of them just toss a packet in. I think person to person, the amount of chocolate powder you want in your hot chocolate varies, as does the amount of maybe milk to water ratio, if there is a ratio for you. And for me, if I get a hot chocolate out, unless it's like really freaking cold and I'm doing it as like this is for temperature reasons, it just never is as good as when I can do all the concocting myself.
That's fair.
I'm not a hot chocolate person, so.
Hot take on hot chocolate. Gas station hot chocolate's the best.
Oh my God. If you take the gas station hot chocolate and you mix it half hot chocolate, half French vanilla coffee from that like coffee machine.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Interesting.
I love it.
See, I don't like coffee, so I do hot chocolate a lot. If like, oh, my friends are doing coffee and the place just says hot chocolate, to appease people like me.
Yeah.
And it's often just terrible. But at gas stations, it's good. And there's certain gas stations where it's a lot better.
What's your go-to gas station?
Maverick.
Okay.
There's not any local here, but
Yeah.
if I'm ever in Utah, Maverick has the best hot chocolate.
Interesting.
I see. I like Love's.
Love's?
There's
Okay.
a lot of those going east if you're driving across, and they've got a lot of different things. But I also like about gas station hot chocolate is you can see when the chocolate water's coming out versus the water, and you can pull the cup away when the water part's out and put it back in when the chocolate part's there.
That's good.
Yeah.
My last one, and I'm sure we will all agree on this, especially in the Denver area, is authentic Mexican. And we make Mexican at home a lot just because it's a easy dish to do. Refried beans, rice, tortilla, whatever your toppings are. And like I always enjoy it at home, but like nothing compares with like an authentic Mexican dish and like all the seasonings they do. The refried beans is always way better than anything that you make at home. The green chili in Colorado is next level. Yeah, I just haven't been able to get close to replicating that.
Agreed.
Sweet. That was fun. Anytime we get to talk about food, I come to life.
I didn't realize you cook so much. That's great.
Yeah. I am like more of a meat grill master. Like I don't make anything intricate, but I do the meat stuff pretty well.
All right.
Yeah.
That's kind of like me too. I can do anything on the grill, but
Yeah.
I lose interest.
Yeah,
past
when breading gets involved, that's a Jenna task for sure.
Yeah.
Cinnamon court we've done, right?
I feel like we did this one.
Yeah, I think we did it last
Because
week.
I remember, unscrupulous was the word.
Yeah. Then let's go to the mailbag.
Mailbag.
Oh, love this.
Hey, this one was great. Hey, not a chicken expert. I love any email that starts that way. Not a chicken expert you were hoping for, but you mentioned Hey the chicken in Moana in the last episode when talking about wild chickens. I just wanted to give you a reason why Moana had Hey and Pua the pig in Moana. They are for good luck. Back in the day when ships sailed, they would have live chickens and pigs kept in crates, and if the ships sunk for whatever reason, the pigs and chickens would float to the top. Sailors, myself included, would actually tattoo a chicken and a pig on their feet for good luck in case the ship would sink and float back to the surface. Also another great episode.
From Brandon.
Brandon, sorry. I love that we're getting letters from sailors. Like, for some reason, I feel like a sailor is like a different creature.
Yeah.
You know, like I feel like you're talking to a mermaid almost.
Borderline pirate.
I picture them in the fun outfits.
Yeah.
I picture them like on big wooden ships.
Yeah.
Everything that probably isn't the way it is anymore,
No,
I picture with sailors.
It totally is.
Like, this guy probably has a lot of tattoos in my mind, including the ones on his feet. He probably like carries a sword.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what my brain thinks.
Love that.
Have you all seen Our Flag Means Death?
No.
The TV show. It's an HBO. It's great.
What is it called?
Is that a new
Our
one?
Flag Means Death. It is new. It's
Okay.
Taika Waititi.
Okay.
It's about a whole group of gay pirates.
Oh, sweet.
Done. We're in the market.
It's so good.
Sold.
It's so
Yeah,
funny.
that's all you had to say. We
So
just finished
funny.
our fall rewatch of Gilmore Girls. I usually don't make it this far. I usually quit when Rory drops out of Yale. But Garrett wanted to finish. Like he was like, we can't do this again. I need to know what happens. And now that it's over, it's like, what do we go to sleep watching?
Do that. Our flag means death.
Our
It's
flag means
great.
death.
We'll check it out.
I'll text
So
it to him.
funny.
I'll for sure check that out. 5-star review. This is from Donks Poops 69. Title is BPR. BPR Burp is my fave pod. Outstanding backpacking pod. Countless enthralling wilderness stories packed with sage advice from seasoned hikers with wonderful and eclectic personalities. The hosts, Chance and Zach, do a tremendous job of steering conversations in the right direction, and they're so good at honing in on questions that the listeners want to hear. Every time I hear Chance say, okay, let's say you're a first-time thru hiker thinking of hiking the AT next year, what would you do if... I always smile and turn the pod to full volume. Shout out to Weezer, Fireball, Dirty A, Professor, and the rest of the wonderful guests that make this podcast so fun to listen to. And thanks for all the FOMO to convince me to hike the PCT next year. I would not have even considered it without y'all. That's from Donks.
What a great trail name.
Yeah, that was good. You're going into the trail with a trail name. Excellent work. If you guys want to hear your review read on this podcast, head on over to Apple and leave any number of stars, just not 1, 2, 3, or 4. And now we are doing stickers to people who send us emails proving that they've left us a review. So I know Mara's been shooting them out at a pretty high rate of late. So if you guys want a sticker, that's the way to get it too.
Nice.
A super big thank you to our Chuck Norris Award winners on Patreon. That is Alex and Misty with Navigators Crafting, Andrew, Austin McDaniel, Austin Ford, Brad and Blair from 13 Adventures, Brent Stenberg, Brian Alsop,
Tables.
Christopher Marshburn, Coach from Marion Outdoors, Dane,
Ish.
Derek Cook, Eric Casper,
The friendly ghost.
Eric Hoffman, Greg Knight, Greg McDaniel, Iron Hike Endurance Productions, Jason Snailer. We haven't gotten that one down.
Yeah,
He
no,
added the
that's
nickname.
you.
Yeah.
There's no we there.
Once
got
upon a
it.
time we
Do
did.
better.
Once upon a time we did Jason Snailer.
Barely know her.
There you go. Liz Seeger, Patrick C. Cialo, Sawyer Products, Spam, Timothy Hahn,
Solo.
and Tracy Trigger. You can follow us on social media at Backpacker Radio on TikTok and Instagram, at Backpacker Pod on X, Facebook.com/Backpacker Radio. You can follow Twinkle. This is where you plug your Instagram.
At Shattuck 311.
Because he loves 311.
I do.
Yeah.
Best band ever.
You can follow Chance.
You can find me on Instagram at Juliana_Chauncey, and you can get my book Hiking from Home, a long distance hiking guide for family and friends on Amazon. That's what we read the gun stuff from. It's good to give to a parent or friend or anyone who's worried about you if you want them to leave you alone.
Or if you want to read about
not,
gun stuff.
Or
Yeah.
not leave you alone, but like in a way that doesn't suck.
Yeah. Appalachian Trials and Pacific Crest Trials are my books. Subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you consume podcasts. Follow us on YouTube. What's up, YouTube?
Hi, Internet.
Our subscriber count is going in the right direction.
Yes.
People seem to be digging the wall. And I think we're going to level up the video game here even further here in the near future. Twinkle actually gave us a fun video trick, so we might explore that as well. And that is it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening, and happy hiking.
Bye.
Bye.